Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching What If Naruto Had a Lost Bloodline. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
From the shadows came a slow voice that said, "Uzumaki Naruto, wake up." The young blonde teen yelled, "Gah!" and snapped awake upon hearing the voice. He finally located the source of the noise by looking around his apartment. Before making its way to the door, the masked figure said, "The third Hokage requires your presence immediately." It seemed to glide in the room's darkness. "What's the big idea? It's only 5 in the morning," Naruto exclaimed as he turned to check his clock nearby. He then got to his feet and glared at the spot where the masked man had been. In some way, he had escaped the house without Naruto noticing. As he began to dress, Naruto complained, "Whatever. This had better be important." With pride, Hiruzen Sarutobi sat in his office. Sarutobi couldn't help himself when he found out that Naruto had finally passed his genin exams. As a grandson, he had come to love Naruto and wished that he would be destined for greatness. Unfortunately, this didn't initially appear to be the case. Naruto rarely practiced his skills, refused to listen to his teachers, and consistently failed his tests. He appeared to be skilled only at pulling practical jokes. But Sarutobi knew that his hope, which he had all but given up on, had a chance to come true when he witnessed the young man master a highly ranked ninjutsu after just a few hours of practice. Before Naruto could really start his path to greatness, there was just one more thing to do. Naruto stormed through the door and yelled, "Hey Gigi-san. What's the big idea waking me up at 4 in the morning?" Naruto began to smile widely as he said, "Want to promote me to Hokage already? Can't say I blame you, I am pretty great." "Naruto, I sent an Anbu to your house at 5. I would appreciate it if you could take this seriously," Sarutobi murmured. Although he had hoped that the teenager would have at least learned some sort of control, it would have been foolish to expect maturation to happen overnight. Sure. Naruto sighed. "Now what is it that you want me for? A super high rank ninja mission?" "It's about your family." My family? Naruto was incredulous. What on earth might the third say about them? "Your family is, well, to be entirely honest, was in possession of a Kekkei Genkai," the third said to Naruto. "Which means that this trait has been passed down to you." "A Kekkei Genkai," shrugged Naruto. "Yes, this one is rather, yes Naruto?" the third asked, noticing that Naruto appeared perplexed halfway through his statement. "What's a Kekkei Genkai?" He had to use all of his restraint not to scream at the boy. The fundamentals of Kekkei Genkai were widely known. "Slow down, Hiruzen. It's still early," the older man explained. "A bloodline limit. A special technique that only your family can perform. Now it's of the utmost importance that you don't share your technique secrets with anyone." He took a deep breath and located his pipe. It probably just slipped his mind. Naruto began to ramble before the man in front of him cut him off. "All right. What ability do I have? Some sort of awesome thing where I can destroy stuff with my eyes? Can I control plants or something? Maybe even have it so that?" "It's all in the scrolls. You are now in possession of over 100 scrolls detailing things about your bloodline that will help you master it." Reaching for a box on his desk, he continued. "This box contains around 20 of the smaller scrolls. The others are in a special vault which I shall accompany you to, and you may take them back to your apartment as soon as you can." Naruto was thrilled about the possibility of having a power that only he could use. "Thanks Gigi-san, but why didn't you give me these earlier?" he asked. "Simple Naruto. It is your clan's law that a member only has access to these scrolls after he becomes an adult. By the village laws you are an adult when you pass the genin exams, so I'm giving them to you now. There are a lot of scrolls, so Iruka volunteered to help you carry them once he arrives." "Isn't he too injured?" Hiruzen grinned kindly and said, "You're destined for great things, and these scrolls will help you do them. Not injured enough so that he can't carry a few scrolls for his favorite student. I only hope your newfound skills don't let you down." "All right. An awesome ability that only I can use. Take that Sasuke. Teme, I'll show you which one of us is better," Naruto said as he relaxed in bed a few hours later. He looked through the boxes of scrolls and found one labeled, "Beginner." "Well, this is as good of a place to start as any, I guess," he said, opening the scroll and starting to read. "Kachiyose Shinsei Seshu. An essential component of any ninja's skill set is the use of ninja animal summons. Dogs, monkeys, fish, and snakes are all used for a variety of reasons, such as tracking, offense, and sentry duty, to mention a few. A shinobi needs to be able to collaborate with others in practically any circumstance. Sometimes, though, having a group of people with you will only lead to your team and you being killed. The Kachiyose technique is employed in such circumstances to bring allies to the battlefield for support. These clever. Why does every scroll have to be so damned boring? Why can't it just tell me how to summon an unbeatable lion or something? Naruto sighed, looking at his clock and realizing that he had little time before meeting Kakashi and the rest of his team. I'll read the rest of these later. He put the beginner scroll in his kunai pouch and thought about eating for a moment before recalling Kakashi's dire warning. He walked out of his apartment after saying, I can handle missing a bit of breakfast. At around 1405 hours, Hinata Hyuga walked through the village, looking anxiously from left to right. It's hard for me to believe that I passed Kurenai Sensei's test. It was challenging to locate her, but I'm happy Kiba.kun and Shino.kun were available to assist. I'm hoping Naruto.kun also passed his Genin test. If he did, perhaps we could work together on some missions. I'll probably end up showing him how weak I am and making a fool of myself, but we'll be able to spend a lot of time together. The young heiress's optimistic thoughts soon turned sour. From right behind her, a loud voice yelled, Hey Hinata, how are you? Before the young girl could turn around and confront the source of the noise, a quick shudder went through her spine. Hinata began, Hello Naruto.kun. I'm doing great. Did you? Hey, did you pass your final exam too? Kakashi. Sensei made us get these bells from him. I passed with flying colors of course. He wanted to test and see if we could handle working together as a group. Sasuke. Teme didn't do too great. He kept trying to show everyone up. It was really annoying, but in the end I carried the team to victory. Naruto interrupted as he began to recount the tale. Without faltering, Hinata was able to say, Congratulations, Naruto.kun. With a faint smile on her lips. Naruto.kun passed too. This is fantastic. Perhaps we can collaborate in the future. Before noticing the sudden sadness that seemed to envelop Hinata, Naruto exclaimed, So what was your guys' test like? I bet it went awesome. Kiba and Shino would be able to get the bells from anyone. I'm sure of it. Hinata, are you sure you're okay? He asked. He doesn't think I could get the bells, so he said, oh yeah, I'm fine. But wait, bells? Hinata gave a slight sigh. We didn't have to get bells Naruto.kun. We're an tracking team. We had to find Kurenai Sensei within a time limit. It wasn't too hard with my Byakugan and Kiba's nose. Shino.kun even managed to bug Sensei so we didn't have to hard of time with it. That's great Hinata. I knew you guys could do it. Naruto looked around. Hey, if you don't mind I gotta go now and practice the stuff on my new scrolls and get ready for my awesome missions tomorrow. Oh, okay Naruto.kun. Goodbye. Hinata bowed docilely. As he hurried off to his house to get some of the scrolls, Naruto yelled, See ya Hinata. Good luck with Kiba and Shino. I'm sure dog. Breath will be fun to hang out with and all, but he's not exactly a quiet person like Shino and you. I didn't pass out in Naruto-kun's presence. As she gazed up at the sky, determined to thank whoever was up there for her good fortune, Hinata mentally celebrated. When she saw a cloud of black smoke rising from somewhere in the village, she stopped. Naruto.kun fled to that location, isn't that right? Yes, that's where he ran off. Perhaps he resides there, his house is visible to me. Hinata saw this as the ideal chance since she had never worked up the nerve to actually find out where Naruto lived. Especially since she could say that she was merely witnessing what had occurred if she were caught. She wasn't ready for what reality would bring. Perhaps I ought to have stopped by Ichiraku's before returning home. Oh well, I have a lot of. Naruto took a quick look at the location of his former apartment. The burned ruins of his house were all that remained. What the hell happened? He asked, looking around again and seeing a number of Anbu putting out the remaining flames. A kind voice said, Naruto, from close by, Gigi.san, what the hell happened? Well Naruto, it would appear that several villagers decided to try to take matters into their own hands. They burned your house down. Naruto broke off in a bewildered rage, saying, I can damn well see that. What about my stuff? My food? My family's scrolls? Naruto, please calm down. I'm afraid that the only things that survived were a few metal tools. Your family's scrolls and everything else burned up in the blaze. Naruto-kun's house is gone. Maybe I can help. Maybe, father, said a young adolescent girl standing a short distance from the house's remnants and the elderly village chief. After emerging from her hiding place, Hinata ran home. Naruto pouted, I can't believe it's all gone. Until he could handle the matter appropriately, Sarutobi had asked him to come to the Hokage's office. Sighing, he replied, Yes, Naruto, I'm afraid that we have yet to find the ones responsible. But I promise you that I'm getting every available asset on it. GG.san. You don't happen to have any copies of the Scrolls One Lost, do ya? I only have the one talking about the basics. Sarutobi said, I'm afraid that we don't. Since you were the only surviving member of your family, it was deemed unnecessary to copy them. It was felt that one set would be enough for you. Besides, even if it was necessary, we wouldn't have been able to. Clan scrolls can't just be copied. We must seek permission from the current head of the clan. He was sighing once more as he tried to get ready for what must happen next. Then why didn't you ask me? I lose stuff like that all the time. I would have said yes. Naruto leapt from the bench he was sitting on. Sarutobi tried to remain composed. According to your own clan's law, you wouldn't have been eligible for head status for another 6 years. Until you were 18, you were not considered a clan head by your clan, and by extension the village. If you had decided to copy them yourself, there would have been allowed. But I'm afraid clan members are not allowed to do so unless specifically granted permission by the current clan head. I'm sorry, Naruto, but there's nothing we can do for you on this matter. The only scroll left is the one you have with you. Naruto sighed in the hopes of at least some positive news, asking, whatever I guess, what about my house? This was the part Sarutobi dreaded the most. Naruto, there is even more bad news. I can't manage to find lodgings for you right now. No apartment complex in your current price range can manage to fit you in. He was unable to stop his shoulders from drooping. What? Naruto gasped. What about Iruka? Sensei, he can take care of me for a little bit, right? Unfortunately, Iruka's landlord is very strict. He may only live with one tenant in the apartment he currently resides in. Iruka's price range isn't much higher than yours, Naruto. He can't afford to fit 2 people. But what about you? Or couldn't you just make someone let me in for a little while? Naruto Uzumaki, are you suggesting I force someone to open their home to a member of the military? Sarutobi stated angrily, I can't order anyone on anything that does not directly relate back to military affairs. The council is in charge of that. I am no dictator, and as such I can't issue an order such as that without their permission. I would thank you to not even remotely suggest that I would do such a thing. Inhaling some smoke from his pipe, he continued in a much calmer tone. As for your other suggestion, I am afraid that it is not possible either. Were I not the Hokage, I would be more than happy to allow you lodgings with me and my family. My grandson would appreciate it too, I think. However, no matter how much I care for you as a grandson, it's just not possible. I can't show favoritism as a standing military head. If I take you in, what about the other orphans who live by themselves? The other ninja who can't afford homes? It's just not possible. It would snowball into a problem too large to contain. I'm sorry, Naruto, but you'll just have to deal with this for a few weeks until another apartment opens up. Think of it as a prolonged survival training if you have to. I'm sorry, but I just can't do anything, or I would. Believe me. Sarutobi pleaded with the young man before him. Before leaving, Naruto gave the elderly man a smile and said, no problem, GG.san, I'll do fine. It may not be the best, but I've had worse. Hiruzen was nearly heartbroken by that smile. Father. When Hiashi's study door was slammed open, he almost jumped. When he saw it was his weakest daughter, Hinata, his surprise almost doubled. What is so important that you have to barge into my office uninvited? He asked in a level tone after rapidly calming himself. With a fierce determination in her eyes, Hinata said, a friend of mine had their house burned down and they need a place to stay for a while. I would like to request the chance for my friend to live here. After observing his daughter for a short while, Hiashi observed that she had not faltered once while explaining, we cannot accept an entire family, he said calmly. It is only one person, father. Hiashi found this development fascinating. This friend clearly had a profound impact on his daughter's conduct. She was far less submissive. What sort of friend is this? They're also an orphan. Perhaps. Bring this friend of yours here, Hinata. I shall make my decision after I have spoken to this friend of yours. Hiashi observed his daughter for a few more moments and was impressed when she did not flinch or squirm under his eyes. As Hinata left her father's study and closed the doors behind her, she said, Arigato gozaimasu, father. Looking at the doors, Hiashi thought to himself, I wonder if perhaps I can turn this to the clan's advantage. Naruto sat on the swing and exclaimed, this sucks. He chose to hang out at his favorite spot because he had nowhere else to go and wasn't in the mood to train. As he considered his options, he became aware that someone was approaching him. Who is that? Most likely a jerk from the village is trying to get me once more. Oh hey Hinata. What are you doing here? He asked, anticipating a confrontation, but was pleasantly surprised when he recognized the figure as Hinata. Hinata stopped and observed the puzzled expression on her crush's face as she said, Well, I was thinking about your situation and well, your house, and well, my house is, what I'm trying to say is Unable to remain silent any longer, Naruto questioned, Hinata, what are you talking about? He reasoned that if he could assist his friend, who appeared to be struggling with speech at the moment, she might be able to get past her difficulties. Hinata muttered, I saw that your house burned down earlier and I was wondering if maybe you wouldn't be opposed to, as her face brightened red. Naruto was now interested in two things. First, what the offer was, and second, how Hinata knew his house had burned down. Wouldn't be opposed to what? He asked. Hinata quickly inquired, if you wouldn't be opposed at taking up residence in the Hyuga Manor? Naruto's eyes narrowed slightly. A little too good to be true, it seemed. Could it be a trap? However, that's absurd. She's Hinata. That's not what she would do. Since it couldn't hurt, I might as well listen to her. Oh no, he's made at me, Hinata said, observing Naruto's eyes narrow. What was it I did? Alright. I have no other options. I'll hear you out, Hinata, but can I ask you a question first? Why are you offering this to me? Not to sound ungrateful, but I'm just curious. Hinata blushed and said, Well, you're my friend. I can't have a friend living in the same streets, can I? Not if I can do something to help them. She had thought about telling him the truth for a moment but lacked the courage. After giving it some thought, Naruto concluded, that does seem like something she would do. Okay, then. Well then, what are we waiting for, Hinata? Let's get to it, Naruto said with a broad smile. Hinata was astonished to discover that she had persuaded Naruto-kun. First, though, father wants to meet you, was all that remained. As they made their way silently to Hinata's house, Naruto's only thought was, I know this isn't going to end well. He would freely acknowledge that he was not a genius, but he considered nearly every scenario that could have happened during their journey, and none of them turned out well. I only hope Hinata stays out of trouble for attempting to assist me. He had no idea how emotionally charged Hinata's thoughts were, but she anticipated a very different result. She thought ominously, he'll probably think it's a horrible place to live and then he'll never talk to me again. She remained blissfully ignorant of the possibility that her father would refuse to let Naruto live there. Naruto looked around at the guards when they finally reached the compound, but he saw that they didn't appear to be paying any attention. They actually appeared to glide over him with their eyes. Even when he walked right in front of a couple by the main gate, they looked away from Hinata and him. I'm being ignored. However, why? Don't they know about me? Why don't they yell at me, curse at me, or just give me a glare? Naruto thought about this for a long time but was never able to come up with a suitable response. He continued to think along these lines until they arrived at the front door. All Naruto could say was, wow, despite its austere appearance, the front door had a certain allure. It had the same appearance as any other wooden door. However, there was something notable about it. Naruto began examining the compound's grounds for the first time and saw that everything shared a common trait. The Hyuga family was wealthy, but they didn't seem to show it on the outside. Nevertheless, everything they possessed appeared to be of exceptional quality. Naruto looked at Hinata and saw that she seemed to be anticipating his arrival. Lead the way, he said softly. There was something about this place that seemed to restrain his usual loudness. I think I'm just anxious. Before long, they were traversing a maze of corridors. The hallways seemed to be identical to one another. A small object, like a portrait or a potted plant, would be placed in each of the hallways to break up the monotony of the stark white walls. Upon examining the wooden floors, it would be evident that despite their different material and color from the walls, they still appeared to blend in. Despite being quite serene, it had a somber tone. At last, Naruto grasped the ambiance of this location. Everything seemed to exude a sense of repression. Naruto saw that Hinata had stopped walking as he arrived at a new hallway that bore no resemblance to the ones he had been in before. Naruto.kun. We're near M.My father's study. UW. We'll have T.Tob.be on your best behavior. Hinata was visibly twitching. This simultaneously brought together two of her greatest fears. Naruto's negative opinion of her and her father. Hinata saw that Naruto was pretending to smile when he said, "Don't worry about it, Hinata. It'll be fine." Hinata was well aware of Naruto's nervousness because even someone who had known him for a few seconds could tell something was wrong. Thank you, Naruto.kun, for attempting to cheer me up. They then carried on walking. After walking for a few minutes, Naruto suddenly asked a question. Hinata jumped when the silence abruptly ended, but Naruto didn't appear to notice. Hey Hinata. Why are we talking to your father about me living here and not the person who owns the place? Wouldn't that make more sense? Did he forget my father is the leader of the clan? Hinata asked, pausing for a moment. Hinata's mood darkened as she began to explain, but Naruto cut her off. He probably just wasn't paying attention, which means he doesn't think what I say is important. Oh wait, your dad does own the place, doesn't he? He's the clan head or something like that. I think you said something about it in class once. Sorry about that, I forgot. It must be nice to be his daughter. I bet you get a bunch of special treatment. The ominous clouds dissipated when Hinata learned that Naruto had given her family some attention. Before she responded, my father cannot show favoritism towards anyone. Being the Hyuga clan leader is difficult to accomplish and even more difficult to maintain the position. If the council votes you out, you will be branded with the Cagebird seal and cast to the branch family while you are replaced with a former clan head. He is usually at the mercy of the council in that respect, so he has to tread carefully. Naruto observes, kind of like Gigi.san. Hinata stopped in front of a slightly more elaborate door that was twice as impressive as the others and said, H.Hi. A lot like Hokage. Sama. We're here. They knocked 3 times before an authoritative voice from inside told them they were free to enter. When Naruto first entered the room, he was astounded by how empty it was. It was astounding how sparsely decorated the room was. On top of the dark desk, which had 4 chairs arranged in a semicircle, was a small plant. There was a little clock on the wall across from the door. A slightly more impressive chair that seated the man Naruto could only assume was Hinata's father was the only additional decoration. The hallways made sense to him, but he had expected the clan head to be a little fancier. There was a wide range of color and decorations even in the Hokage's office. Except for the furniture, which was a drab shade of wood, this room was nearly entirely white. Nevertheless, the room managed to convey a sense of authority and prestige in spite of the absence of decorations. This is your friend Hinata, Heishi said, equally taken aback by the person his daughter had brought before him. An intriguing decision. He would not be associated with most people. Uzumaki Naruto, the 9-tailed fox Jinchuruki. The 2 teenagers obeyed his orders after he beckoned to them in a slow voice, saying, close the door please. He then added, now sit down. We have much to discuss but little time. I shall assume that you are ignorant of certain protocols, so I will inform you that you shall address me as Heishi. Sama. I am a patient man, but I have little tolerance for disrespect. He observed that Naruto seemed anxious. Now, I hear that your house has been burned down. Have I heard correctly? The only response Naruto could muster was, yes. Something told him that the best course of action would be to be brief. Short answers, I like that. As I said, we have little time. Now, as you are no doubt aware, we are members of the Hyuga clan. We are one of the ruling clans of Konoha. We have one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful dujutsu in existence, and forgive me if I sound like I am bragging, but we have an extensive treasury. However, we cannot shelter someone for free. We are not a hotel or an apartment complex. As clan head, I have been given the task of speaking for my entire family, including both the main and cadet branches. Now, if I remember properly, please correct me if I'm wrong, you need a place to stay. Normally I would say no without hesitation. However, my daughter has taken up for your cause. Tell me why you asked her if you could stay with the Hyuga clan. It felt like the already thin ice he was standing on was beginning to melt, and Naruto appeared perplexed for a moment before responding. I didn't ask her. I was sitting in the park and she just came up to me and said that I could come live here for a while if it was okay with you, Heishi. Sama. Heishi pondered the information for a few moments without saying anything. I see. I apologize, I was under the assumption that you had asked for this. Now. Naruto stammered, trying to salvage his chances. I wouldn't say no, it's just that it didn't occur to me until she offered. Interruptions are inexcusable, Uzumaki-san. It will not happen again in my presence. Understand? Heishi narrowed his eyes. Naruto nodded silently, attempting to avoid upsetting the clan head any more than he had already. Very well, give me a few moments to think about this situation. Gesturing toward the entrance, he said, you may wait outside until I am ready. Do not wander off. I will call you back in after I am done thinking. The 2 young teenagers got to their feet. Naruto followed Hinata's example and bowed before they went into the hallway. For a few moments, they sat silently, nearly too scared to speak. From the other side of the door, Hieshi's voice boomed, re-enter. They went back into the room and sat down again without saying anything. I have given this quite a bit of thought and I have come to the conclusion that you may stay here but on one condition. Heishi spoke softly. Naruto questioned, his eyes clearly narrowed. What would that be, Heishi? Sama. He wasn't exactly going to put his trust in the first person who offered a quick fix after the Mizuki incident. Currently, nothing. Just be aware that at some point in the future I will call upon you to do something for me. After a few minutes of silence, Naruto said, on one condition. Negotiation? Before asking, and that would be? Heishi thought, interesting. I will not betray someone as a favor. Not the Leaf Village and not one of my friends. It never occurred to me to use him against the Leaf. That's irrelevant, I guess. I didn't think he had many friends, which is strange. For a few more seconds, Heishi remained silent to see if Naruto would change his mind. Very well. You will be sleeping in the servants' quarters. Hinata, I have a task for you. Heishi turned to face his daughter, who appeared taken aback by the conversation, and said, find someone to escort him there. Hinata said as she stood up and began to walk toward the door, Hi father. I will do it, it will be F. Faster. Foe. Follow me Naruto. Prior to their departure, Naruto turned around and said, thanks Heishi. Sama. You're an alright guy. A tiny smirk appeared on Hiashi's face after he waited and watched the two teenagers leave his office. I'm hoping this works in my favor. I only hope that Hinata's response to the boy remaining here hasn't been underestimated. S.So. How do you feel about B being able to live here with me? Us. The Hyuga clan? Hinata asked Naruto as she was making her way to the servants' quarters. When she realized what she had said the first time, she almost passed out. It appears that Naruto missed the error when he said, I guess it beats living on the streets. I'm just a little surprised your dad let me. I'm not exactly well liked by the villagers. Why? He stiffened up when he realized his error in mouth, because because I'm such a big prankster, people don't really like me being in their homes. They seem to think I'll ruin their stuff or something. Oh well, guess it's what I get for being so good at what I do. Hinata. Hinata realized Naruto was lying right away. He was clearly wearing a fake smile, but she decided that he didn't have to. If he didn't want to tell her. They continued to walk in silence for a short while before Naruto saw that many of the people they passed had forehead tattoos, and they all bowed to the two teenagers. However, he observed another aspect of them that seemed far more familiar. They were all distrustful and hateful. It was really well concealed. He might not have noticed if he hadn't become so accustomed to it. What was strange was that the hostility seemed to be aimed at Hinata rather than at him. Naruto glanced at the girl next to him, who, sensing that he was staring at her, turned her head away and blushed slightly. Why would they feel so strongly about Hinata? Does she behave differently toward those in her home than she does toward those outside of it? But she seems like such a nice girl. Naruto thought about this for a moment before he said, Hinata? Hinata turned to face her crush, but she continued to move forward. Hi Naruto. She asked. As he continued to walk, Naruto questioned, why do all those people look at you like that? It is because I am a main branch member. I'm too weak. It is unacceptable. Hinata responded slowly and quietly, her shoulders slumping as she halted her movement and fixed her gaze on the ground. Her eyes were beginning to well up with tears. When Naruto learned that Hinata believed she was weak, he was shocked. Alright then, we'll just have to work on making you stronger, was the answer that came to Naruto after he thought about it for a few seconds. Hinata looked up and saw Naruto's cerulean eyes burning with resolve. What? She asked. Simple. I'll help you get stronger. If you don't think you're strong enough, the only thing to do is to try harder. She protested, but something began to seep into her very being. But, I'm too weak Naruto. She simply was unable to recognize it. Well then let's just train as hard as we can until you're stronger. I'll help you get stronger if it's the last thing I do. Come on Hinata. You can do it. I believe in you. Naruto. Has faith in me. As her doubts appeared to vanish in the light of Naruto's belief in her, Hinata pondered. A chilly voice said, you would be wasting your time Naruto. From a door that was opening. Forgive my intrusion, I could not help overhearing your conversation and felt it my duty to save you some time. Naruto turned to face the young man who had come out of the room and yelled, who the hell are you to saw anything? Hinata will become stronger, believe it. Hinata is destined to be weak. She cannot change. The child replied with a smirk, but if you must know my name it is Hyuga Neji. I am of the cadet branch. Naruto yelled, his face flushed, well we'll show you, Hinata will become stronger than you could ever dream. He grabbed Hinata and turned to go, even though he had no idea where he was going. I can't stand it when someone thinks they can stomp on someone's dreams like that. You'll see, he said. All he knew was that he needed to leave Neji as quickly as possible so that he could begin assisting Hinata in becoming stronger and demonstrating to him that she was capable of recovering. Hinata could not find the right words to express her viewpoint. On the one hand, she was glad that Naruto would choose to defend her, but she had to concur with Neji that she would never become stronger. She was weak and would remain so forever. The little hope Naruto had instilled in her went crashing down. As they walked away, she heard Neji say, "Just like a pair of failures." She also felt Naruto's grip tighten, saying, "They always tend to stick together." Naruto's grip was getting painful, saying, "Makes them feel better to be with their own kind." Hinata's arm was getting really sore, saying, "They especially like to become friendly with those who are even weaker than themselves." Naruto had stopped them and was beginning to shake with rage. What was about to be said was cut off when Neji heard a tiny thud to his right head. But to see the dead last resort to it is surprising. "I didn't think you'd be this good at it either, Naruto-san. You must have done a lot of research to find someone even more destined to failure as yourself." "It must," she said. "Shut up, you bastard. Me and Hinata will become two of the most powerful ninja ever. I'm gonna be the Hokage and she'll get so powerful you'll be begging her not to kick your ass up and down the damn street." Naruto yelled as he drew another attack. "Besides, who are you to judge her? You're all talk. If this is your way of challenging me to a sparring session, I must decline. I have training to attend to and I don't think it would benefit me to have such a light training session," Neji said, removing the kunai from the wall and throwing it idly back to the area between Naruto's feet. "See? You're trying to get out of it, you cowardly cross-dresser. You seem to misunderstand me, Uzumaki-san. I am saying that were we to spar it would be no challenge. I would win hands down. It is fated to happen. I was Rookie of the Year and have had many more years of experience than you. Meanwhile, you are widely known as dead last, graduating only due to the fact that you were favored by the Hokage." Naruto yelled, quickly reducing the gap between them. "Well then, it shouldn't take you too long to win then, should it? Why not prove it?" Neji said softly, "Wait." Surprisingly, Naruto paused. "Fighting in the halls would be most unseemly. If you insist on losing, follow me. We shall go to one of the indoor sparring rooms. To make it even somewhat interesting, I won't use the Byakugan. This way, follow me." Neji then led Naruto away, Hinata following. On the inside, Hinata was terrified of how severely Neji would harm Naruto. She trusted him, but Neji was completely different. Several years his senior, she had witnessed Neji defeat Hyuga members. To be honest, she couldn't recall the last battle that Naruto had prevailed in. For a few minutes they drove in silence. Hinata looked almost obsessively at Neji and Naruto. In every aspect, the two teenagers appeared to be different. Neji carried himself with such poise that it seemed as though he were leading them through the house on a routine errand. On the other hand, Naruto was shaking with rage and anticipation. It was impossible for Hinata to avoid wondering why she seemed to be in this group. She reflected, probably trembling with fear. When they reached one of the smaller training areas where adults would take children to train, Neji remarked, "Here, this one will work well enough. It seems to be appropriate enough." It seemed insulting to Hinata that he had chosen it as their battleground. "Alright, ya jerk, I'm gonna get you down with one hit," would have been completely lost on Naruto if this were the case. Neji stood with his arms folded in front of him, seemingly content to watch Naruto rather than engage in combat, and his only reply was, "Hinata, you will proctor the fight." He never took his eyes off Naruto during this conversation. "Oh well, Hinata appeared to recoil at the thought of terminating the altercation. "I would prefer to stop it now," she thought gravely. "Whenever you say go, Hinata, I'll kick his ass." Hinata muttered, go," loud enough for the two teenagers to hear. Naruto had no idea what had struck him. He was on the ground in pain one moment, and then he was getting ready to move so he could use his Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. It was as if a burning rod were passing through his veins. Neji said, "One hit. I believe that is how many you allowed yourself, correct?" From above him, appearing undamaged. How Neji could have moved so fast was a mystery to Naruto. A slight smirk appeared on Neji's face as he said, "I think that I disproved your little theory that people can become better than their fate." Neji then started to move toward the door, saying, "He is unable to get up. I believe I won." When Hinata saw how swiftly her crush had been vanquished, she was nearly rendered speechless. I was all she could say. Naruto uttered, "Hey, I guess you weren't all bark," from the ground. Neji was shocked to see that the young boy could move at all when she turned to face him. He was getting to his feet, very slowly, and it seemed like every word was hurting him a lot. I'll give you this one. But people can change, and, if they try hard enough, they can become great. Next time, I'll win, just you wait. As he began to move toward the door, Neji said over his shoulder, I commend your tenacity. But fate decided who won here. Fate has already decided who will win. If you insist on challenging me again, the outcome will be the same. Me and Hinata, we'll get stronger together. We'll be able to beat you within a year, believe it. Before the door shut, there was a little HMPH, that was the only sign Neji had heard him. N. Naruto.kun, are you okay? At last, Naruto managed to stand up, saying, hey, it'll take more than that to keep me down. I've had a lot worse. Though, never that quickly. Hinata began, but Naruto cut her off. I'm sorry. Sorry for what? I challenged him. I should have taken it more seriously. It really did sound like he was bluffing. We'll get him next time. Hinata had assumed that Naruto's boast about them getting strong enough to defeat Neji was merely a final attempt to annoy Neji. You meant what you said? She asked. And I never go back on my word. Believe it, Naruto was feeling well enough to smile slightly at Hinata, who felt her heart skip a beat. Of course I meant it. Nearly obediently, Hinata sat and watched the door leading to the training room's exterior. She had been working on how quickly she could activate her Byakugan when she saw her blonde crush making her way to the compound. She was initially able to ignore her thoughts of him in order to concentrate more on her training. She had grown somewhat more used to his presence because the few weeks he had been living here had gone rather smoothly, with the exception of a few minor hiccups that were mostly caused by his lack of manners. Naruto spent the majority of his free time training with her, giving the impression that he was taking his promise to help her become stronger very seriously. However, given how widely their training schedules differed, she had to acknowledge that this was not a lot of time. But any amount of time spent with Naruto was appreciated. She couldn't concentrate on her training until her Byakugan enhanced eyes saw that he was going to the training rooms. She then began to stare at the door, a tiny smile growing as he drew closer. An unsettling scene met Naruto as he opened the door to the training room where Hinata was meant to be. A week ago, while watching Hinata spar with her father, he had caught a glimpse of the Byakugan in action. The match, however, lasted only a few seconds before Heishi called it over because Naruto was watching, just like his own match with Neji. Upon closer inspection, he discovered that it was strangely inappropriate for Hinata's face. The young girl didn't feel like it fit because of how fierce it was. But it seemed all the more terrifying because of the smile on her face. Happiness and the Byakugan do not mix. Got it. For her part, Hinata deactivated her bloodline after apparently realizing her error rather quickly. Hello Naruto.kun. We're missions today. His voice had gotten louder during his tirade until he was almost shouting, boring as always. I mean, I've been a genin for a month and I'm still just painting fences and catching cats. The one that the one lady has keeps getting me really bad. I should be out there protecting princesses and important people. Not getting my face scratched off by cats or helping old ladies with their groceries. Hinata did think it was kind of cute that he believed he was prepared for something so prominent, but she would have thought it was even cuter if she hadn't realized he was missing the point. There is a reason that they have us doing SM. Small task like it was Naruto.kun. What reason could they possibly have for that? Did you not pay attention in class, Naruto.kun? Well, it is supposed to foster teamwork and prepare us for the shinobi lifestyle. They have to make sure that we are as prepared as we can be. Before they let us try to protect princesses. Hinata nearly said this out loud before she stopped herself because she knew he wasn't the best student ever and it had likely just slipped his mind. Even though he could understand why they would, Naruto pouted a little and said, I still don't like them dumping the easy ones on us. In order to avoid having to do it himself, he had thought of having Konohamaru and his friends do it for him earlier. I do not think they will ever give a fresh out of academy student a C rank, or anything higher, profile then a D rank. Circa rank? Inquired Naruto. Hinata paused for a long moment, and he looked at her. It was clear to him that she was wondering whether he was kidding. But after a few moments of silence, Hinata went on, saying, well, there are 5 ranks of MI missions and these same ranks are applied to ninja capable of those missions. D ranks are the lowest and therefore the easiest to complete. C ranks are generally for highly skilled genin and chunin, but chunin al also take part in them. A ranks are al almost exclusively junin bu. But a Chunin accompanying them is not unheard of. Ranks are the most dangerous, but I am afraid I do not know who takes them because they are typically secretive. They do not let many genin study them. Hinata's face was blazing hot by the time she finished speaking because the blonde had given her undivided attention. Hinata's last statement was hurried because she wanted to be able to end her speech as quickly as possible. So as a genin we would only be able to do D ranks or maybe a C. Almost immediately after her last statement, Naruto said, you must be really smart to remember all that, Hinata. I don't think anyone else would have bothered to memorize that. Well, thank you, Naruto-kun. Hinata was aware that this was well known, but she couldn't help but accept a compliment from her crush. You said that ninja are ranked like that too, right? Naruto asked after a brief silence. Before he responded to her implicit query, Hinata paused to consider where he might be taking this. Well, where would you rank people in our class? Like who? Well, you said most would be D ranked, right? So let's do it like this. I'll say a name, and you say their general rank and then their rank within their rank. What do you mean? Hinata asked, perplexed by his statement. While general rank was simple enough to comprehend, rank within their rank was a strange expression. Well, if they're a genin they'd be a D, right? So if they're a good genin they're a DA, or if they're almost a chunin they're a DS, but if they suck they're a DD, alright. From Naruto's perspective, it was clear that she didn't want to say that anyone was evil. Well, alright. Don't worry about it, Hinata. I won't tell anyone, alright? Just be as honest as you can, please? This was sufficient to persuade her. The conversation was innocuous. What could possibly go wrong if no one else heard? Hi, Naruto-kun. I will be honest with you. Okay then, Sakura-chan. Naturally, he would begin with her. Hinata almost shook her head, pushing the sinister idea from her thoughts. Well, she has good chakra control, but she seems to put off her training in order to dote on Sasuke, so I guess a DC rank, she said. After appearing to think for a while, Naruto said, Shikamaru? He does not work very hard, so DD. I would have said that too. What about your team, mates? Hinata started to look uneasy, saying, Kiba DC and Shino DB. What about you? After a few moments of staring at the ground, Hinata responded, I am hardly a threat. Academy. D. Which is being generous. That's bullshit. Hinata looked like she was jumping when Naruto said swiftly, you're a pretty big threat compared to the rest of us. You're smart and you have great chakra control, right? All you need is a little bit of confidence and you'd be a DS or better. I know it. You're probably the closest to C rank compared to the rest of us. Hinata began to smile a little and said, Arigato, Naruto-kun. Naruto had no idea that this brief speech meant more to Hinata than he could have ever imagined. Don't let anyone tell you you're weak, alright? You're just a little shy about your abilities. Once you get some confidence you'll be kicking everyone's ass. The odd compliment made Hinata flush, but she remained silent about it. So who else? She asked. Well, how about me? Be honest, SS, SA at the lowest. D was the prompt response. Naruto was momentarily taken aback by the abrupt and severe response, asking, what? Hinata appeared on the verge of tears as she begged Naruto not to be angry with her, saying, Why? You Jew? Just do not have the knowledge now. Naruto-kun. You said be honest. Please do not be mad, but you did not really pay attention in school and you cannot do some of the basic jutsu. Oh, please do not be mad. Please do not be mad. I'm not mad, Hinata, it's just a little harsh. But you're right, I guess. I can't get better if people aren't honest with me, so thanks for being honest. I did ask you to be honest. Hinata continued to hold the impression that he was upset with her. You will get better fast, Naruto-kun. It is just compared to the others. He said the final line with a wink and a tiny smile that made her heart race. Hinata, calm down. I'm not happy about the verdict, but it's not your fault. Besides, you don't know all my tricks yet. Alright, Naruto-kun. Still, I understand what you're saying, Hinata. Let's just move on. How about Sasuke, Teme? CD, he is most likely the person who is closest to Naruto-kun out of all of us. Hinata noticed that Naruto had stopped looking at her, and his features, which before had held an accepting look, now held a small and steadily growing amount of anger. Naruto-kun. Because he couldn't believe it, Naruto didn't pay attention to anything else she said. Hinata couldn't help but feel bad about herself when the door slammed behind him. How could I forget that he does not like Sasuke? I probably made him think I like Sasuke better than him. Naruto.kun might even think I dislike him in comparison. She soon realized she couldn't stand to remain in the training room any longer and made the decision to go to the one place that always made her feel at ease. I don't even seem like the type, and I can't believe that she thinks that hole is better than me. She's probably one of his fangirls too. Yeah, I'll admit that the guy is okay, but why does everyone seem to think he's the end all be all? Even Hinata, it's so weird. Is it just a woman thing or something? What does he have that I don't? He's just a bastard who can do a few tricks better than a few other people. To hell with this. Naruto placed his hands in his pockets and felt his family's scroll touch his smallest finger. He knew he should have taken this more seriously, but something prevented him from doing so. The remote chance that the Hokage was playing a sick joke on him, providing a last connection to his family when it was actually a dead end. No, between her and Kakashi. Sensei, I haven't had any time to try it. I would never be subjected to that by Gigi.san. Before opening a door that was a little bigger than the others, he shook himself out of his gloomy thoughts. Okay, now time to read this thing. Naruto entered the room as soon as he realized it was a training room and closed the door. Alright, let's do this. With that, he opened the scroll as quickly as he could and started reading. Kachiyose Shinsei Seshu. A ninja's arsenal should include a variety of animal summons, such as dogs, monkeys, fish, and snakes, which can be used for a variety of purposes, such as tracking, offense, and sentry duty, to mention a few. A shinobi must be able to collaborate with others in almost every situation, but in some cases, bringing a group of people to the battlefield will only result in the death of you and your team. In these cases, the Kachiyose technique is used to bring allies to the battlefield for support. These intelligent creatures will typically require an offering of the summoner's blood and chakra before they will agree to appear. Normally, one would have to sign an exclusive contract in order to summon a creature, but those who possess this bloodline will be able to avoid signing a contract entirely. At this point, Naruto stopped and said, "So I can summon whatever I want." He nodded before carrying on with his reading. Due to the nature of the bloodline limit, the summoning process is a little different. As a result, it is advised that novices begin with a summon that has a simple skeletal structure. A slug is one of the most basic summons. Slugs? How on earth could a slug be useful? Naruto was near shouting. His earlier anger at Hinata was starting to become a rage at the creators of this scroll for picking such a worthless first summon. Why not snakes or something? They would also be simple, wouldn't they? There aren't any skeletons to call forth. The snake is another liked first choice. By now, Naruto nearly slapped himself. However, this scroll will first teach you how to summon slugs because they are the easiest for beginners to learn. Be warned, though. At this point, Naruto put down his book and quickly scrolled down to the section with multiple detailed illustrations that demonstrated how to make the hand signs. Alright, this isn't too difficult, is it? Following multiple tries at assembling the hand signals, Naruto concluded he was prepared to give it a go. Alright, here I go. Flashing through the hand signs, Naruto channeled chakra through his hands before biting his thumb as the instructions had indicated. Kachiyose no Jutsu. He felt the chakra release as he slammed his hand to the floor. Nothing took place. What? I followed all of its instructions. A steady voice behind him said, "You are not putting enough chakra into the summon." Naruto spun around to greet the newcomer and exclaimed, "What are you doing here?" With a hint of wry amusement, Heishi Hyuga turned to face the small, blonde teen. "This is my home, Naruto. I believe that allows me to go where I want." Heishi paused, as if he was expecting a laugh, but when Naruto's expression remained neutral, he went on, "Although, if this is not the case, I would also like to point out that this happens to be my private training room." "Oh well, I didn't mean to, it's just that it looks like all the others and..." Naruto began to ramble as soon as he awoke from his daze, but Heishi interrupted him as fast as he could. "Naruto, it's okay. You had no way of knowing. It's pretty much the same as the others, and I doubt anyone would have told you. After a while, it comes naturally. The room belongs to whom? As a result, there is really little need to inform others, and I will confess that we Hyugas have a tendency to forget that other people don't have our sense of direction. Now, there were two reasons I was searching for you. Since we haven't spoken since the day you arrived, I wanted to find out how you found the compound thus far." "Oh, it's fantastic. A little unclear, and if I may ask Heishi-sama, I was truly curious about something." "Feel free. What prevents me from dining with Hinata? She simply vanishes whenever it's mealtime, and I'm not whining. I was just intrigued." "I apologize for saying this, but you are not of her station, and she is an heiress. I don't mind if you two are friends, but there are some rules that need to be followed, Heishi said. All right, so tell me what else you wanted. After a brief pause, Naruto added, Heishi-sama. Well, I have heard through several channels that you had an altercation with Neji. All that was said was that Neji is a jerk who needs a good ass kicking. All that talk about faith. With no trace of venom in his voice, Naruto declared, it's a bunch of crap. Heishi only replied, you seem to dislike my nephew. As he quickly attempted to clarify, Naruto's mouth fell open. Well WH. What I mean was TH. That. But Heishi cut in, saying, no, I have to admit that your candor is a little refreshing. It's nice to know that I'm not the only one who has noticed his resentment because so few people call him anything other than a prodigy. I hoped he would handle the loss of his father better than that. I'm afraid he blames me for it. For a few moments, Heishi was silent as he looked thoughtfully at the ceiling. Well, whatever, it's none of your business, he said. Ask Neji if you want to know more about it. Who finds out about the incident worries him. Let's talk about your summoning jutsu. How are you aware of it? I apologize for disturbing Heishi-sama. Naruto was about to bow when he noticed a little cough. My previous interruption will be regarded as an equal exchange for your current one. I won't punish you too severely if you fall back into old habits. Just make sure that this issue is resolved as quickly as possible. I'll now respond to your query. Prior to becoming a clan head, I was a high-ranking Junin for a number of years. I've witnessed a lot of summoning jutsus to understand their fundamentals. Heishi hesitated for a moment, as if pondering, but Naruto took it as a cue to remain silent. It seems that you were attempting to call forth a slug, Heishi said. Though I must admit that I cannot quite place which animal you were trying to summon. It didn't look the same, though. It was almost like a different summons. Well, slugs are the easiest to summon according to my scroll. Ah, you've signed the slug scroll already? Although I can't judge you for it, you are a little too young to have been given that responsibility. Let me now share a story with you about calling forth jutsus. They need a great deal of chakra. An enormous quantity. Much more than the typical genin would have. Heishi concluded by saying, Goodbye, Naruto, and good luck, before making his way to the door. Let's use this room for another hour or so, he said, and then he went outside and closed the door. Is he aware? Naruto was caught off guard by this possibility. Almost everyone else treated him so horribly because of his tenant. The possibility that a high-ranking clan leader would accept that he and the fox were different entities was an interesting, if not entirely plausible, one. After several seconds of pondering this, Naruto decided that it wasn't important at the moment and that he should focus more on his summoning practice. Once again he ran through the hand signs, only to have nothing happen. Damn it, another time. And with that, the training rhythm was established. Even though Naruto was only instructed to stay for an hour, he lost track of time, and 3 hours later, with his mind frayed and his chakra reserve almost completely depleted, he decided he had reached his limit. One more time though. He pulled as much chakra as he could and discovered that he had more than he had anticipated. He then began flying through the hand signs, saying, Kachiyose no Jutsu. A huge cloud of smoke appeared as he slammed his hand on the ground. When the smoke cleared, Naruto coughed a few times and saw a big lump sitting there. When he could see the details, he saw that it was a large slug, about knee deep, with short eye stalks. Its dark green body had a small pair of yellow stripes running from front to back, and a second pair of yellow stripes on its face area looked like a mustache, though it was missing a lot from the middle. Well, hell yeah, I succeeded, but what a strange looking slug. I wonder how I'll get rid of it. After a few seconds of staring at Naruto, the slug made a deep sound that sounded like words. Who are you? God damn it, you can speak. With a tone that suggested it was not interested in this meeting and would much rather be napping, the slug took a few seconds to respond. I asked you a question first, summoner. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I called you here, I guess. After taking a few moments to survey its surroundings, the slug responded, you are a new summoner. It made a sound akin to a yawn, but it did not move or stretch in any way. This is obvious, the slug said. Your mentor is where? What happened to Tsunade-chan? Who? Before mentally adding, I bet it takes a while to answer, Naruto posed the question. The slug took a few seconds to respond, as Naruto had anticipated, saying, Tsunade must have fallen. It is so regrettable that you should be the one to assume her role. The slug scroll, may I see it then? Before I go back, I would like to mark her as deceased on it. The big slug stared at the scroll for a moment before responding, and Naruto, unsure of what this slug scroll was, did the best thing he could think of. He pulled out his family's scroll for it. The slug summoning scroll is not this one, but something about it feels familiar. I have to bring this up with Katsuya Sama. When I have her decision, I will come. Is Tsunade Sama still alive before I depart? I don't know, I've never met her. As Naruto had expected, the slug's response was surprisingly quick. Very well. With those final words, the slug vanished in a thin cloud of smoke. Who is Tsunade? For that matter, or Katsuya? He decided he was ready to sleep and started to go to his assigned room, but something kept pulling at his conscience. Oh, who cares? I'll just ask whenever it decides to show up again, I guess. Hinata, who was still trying to figure out how she should apologize to Naruto, stood in one of the gardens as the light faded from the world. She always liked the way lilies looked at twilight. There was something about it that calmed her, but she couldn't pinpoint it. From behind her, a soft voice said, "Hey Hinata," and she jumped in alarm. Naruto-kun. She cried out as she spun shamefully to face Naruto, and even though she was terrified, she wished she could have a portrait of him right then and there. His face was half hidden by shadows, and the carefully tended flowers created a calm atmosphere that made them seem as if they were in their own little world. Hey, I just wanted to say I'm sorry for how angry I was with you earlier. I was just annoyed that you made me feel so inferior while he was already Chunin ranked. I should not have been angry with you for being honest with me. I behaved like a child. Ultimately, I was the one who initially requested that you do that. I simply wanted to express my regret for my behavior. No, Naruto-kun, I should have realized that saying that would make you upset. Simply put, you asked me, and I refused to lie, so you became upset and now he'll think I'm weak and he'll run off and, she thought, but her thoughts were cut short when she saw a pair of arms envelop her. And well, all the sorrow she had experienced throughout her years came spilling out at that moment as her grief started washing over her in overwhelming waves and she couldn't stop herself from crying. For his part, this seemed to help Hinata as her sobs gradually subsided, and they remained like this in the gradually darkening gardens until Hinata's sorrow gave way to pleasant dreams. Naruto had no idea if this would work, in fact he was certain it wouldn't, but he couldn't think of anything else to try, so he just did what he wished someone had done for him when he was younger and crying. Naruto had to use all of his self-control to keep from throwing the little animal he was holding at the Hokage, saying, "Mission complete Gigi, we got the cat." As the Hokage started to say, "Ah, very well, please give it to your client over," the big woman interrupted him. As she paid the on-duty attendants, the big woman continued to talk to the cat in a voice one might use with a small child, but none of the ninja in the room paid attention. "Tora, I never thought I'd see you again, baby. You managed to get lost again," she said. All of them have heard it before. In fact, it had become so commonplace that missions involving the cat were lovingly referred to as Tora classed. Many of the academy's younger students believed that a Tora class mission was a noble and glorious endeavor. When they discovered the true nature of Tora class missions, everyone was disappointed. However, the Hokage was interacting with Team 7 throughout the entire episode. As I was saying, your next task will be a D-ranked mission and it will be to assist in helping the Bushi family construct a fence around their property. He paused when he thought he heard Naruto say something like, "I got hurt," but he couldn't be certain because of how quiet the comment was. At last, Naruto couldn't stand it any longer. No, I won't do it, old man. I absolutely refuse to be given another boring mission. You will do whatever mission is assigned to you by Hokage Sama, Iruka thought, forcing his face to contort in anger. I'm surprised he lasted as long as he has. Naruto turned back to the elderly Hokage and yelled, "Come on Gigi-san. Give us a better one," before shouting, "I'm tired of all these boring missions," towards Iruka. Even the Dobi has to be right sometimes it seems, Sasuke said, observing the entire event with detached interest. These tasks are tiresome and unworthy of a person with my level of skill and prestige. Though she resisted the urge to slap Naruto for his disobedience, Sakura was adopting a much harsher perspective, asking, "How annoying can you get? I mean, these missions aren't necessarily bad just because they aren't glamorous. We get paid for it, and we get to spend time with Sasuke-kun. After all, what's not to adore? You are just a rookie. Everyone starts with easy jobs and works their way up." Iruka yelled at his favorite student after he finally had enough. "Yeah, but we have the two top-ranked genin from the graduating class on our team, so shouldn't we be applying this to something more than catching cats?" Naruto said, taking a step forward in response. Regardless, all of you are just starting out. There is no reason for you to get anything difficult, Iruka said, clearly taken aback by Naruto's reasoning, but he recovered quickly. What about a low C rank? Iruka began with A, but was taken aback once more. He was paying attention in class for that. I'm impressed. While you do make a very good point, Naruto, I don't think that Hokage Sama would give you a mission like that. Even if all of us were, was the statement Kakashi used to introduce himself. Hiruzen raised his voice. Very well. WH. What? The old man was being so silent that Iruka had almost forgotten the Hokage was at his side. They can have a C rank. BU. But they're just starting out, they. I'm well aware of this, Iruka. However, it appears that Naruto, the worst of the team, feels they are ready for a low C rank. Naruto sighed. And if he thinks that he and his team mates can handle it, I don't see why it would hurt. Besides, I just happen to have one that a few genin would be able to handle by themselves. With the legendary Kakashi Hitaki with them, I'm sure that this will be an almost literal walk in the park. Iruka began, but was cut off when the Hokage began to speak softly, but they're just starting. Iruka, I am your superior officer. Are you really going to question me in front of these impressionable genin? What if they learn a bad habit from you going unpunished? We couldn't have that. So if you really want me to show them what happens to those who disobey their superiors, by all means continue. Iruka quickly replied, yes Hokage. Sama. I'm sorry Hokage. Sama. He then quietly sat back in his chair. Before continuing, Hiruzen grinned and said, now if you think you're up to it, I think you'll do well with this protection mission, to the genin. Alright. Are we protecting a princess or a, wait, low C rank? The way Hinata explained it, that's nothing big, so Naruto interrupted, his excitement getting the better of him. Alright, who is it? Some old drunk who can't even walk 20 meters before he falls flat on his face? Naruto asked, pausing as his excitement began to wane. All 4 members of Team 7 turned around when the door behind them opened. I can walk 20 meters, ya brat. Hell, I can even walk 23 without help. The elderly man, who was clearly from a coastal area, stood there and paused while drinking from his sake bottle. It's at 23.5 where the trouble starts. He shook with laughter at his joke, but no one else in the room did. Well, Team 7, this is Tazuna and he's, Sarutobi said once more after the man's laughter subsided. A super bridge builder. So this is the team that's with me? I thought I signed up for ninja protection and not a bunch of snot-nosed brats straight out of the crib. Hell, the short one doesn't even look like he's out of diapers yet. The Hokage began talking to Tazuna about the specifics of the mission and his complete faith that Team 7 was ready, but the team members were chatting among themselves. Naruto leaned sideways toward the older man and whispered, pissed, Kakashi. Sensei, what happens if we kill him? Well, if no one notices, we just don't get paid. Oh, and it goes down as a failed mission, which wouldn't look good on your record. He paused for a moment before continuing, or mine for that matter. So I'd appreciate it if you didn't kill him. Following a brief period of pouting, Naruto said, fine. But I won't like hanging out with him. No one's asking you to, Naruto. Tazuna, who was standing close to the Hokage, who was shaking his head disgustingly, said, hey, don't ignore me, you little bastard. Seeing that Naruto was not paying attention, he said, I see you over there talking to that masked guy. Whatever, just make sure to give me super protection until I get back to my homeland and complete my bridge. After that you can be short and stupid all you want. Tazuna roared with laughter at his own joke. Even though I don't like Naruto, I have to admit that's a bit harsh. Sakura scowled at the elderly man. Kakashi eyed his increasingly irate pupil and rubbed the back of his head. Well, he said, I think it would be a good idea to meet up at the village gate in about an hour. How about you 3 go get prepared while I discuss a few things with the client? Kakashi dismissed his 3 students after they had all nodded, though slowly, in different ways due to confusion, indifference, and rage. This mission is much more appropriate for someone with my level of talent. Since the Dobby one was able to secure this mission for me, I guess I owe them something. Sasuke uttered the final line out loud. Even those who are weak have their uses. I guess this just serves to emphasize one of father's favorite proverbs. Since her house wasn't far away, Sakura moved much more slowly, and hurrying would probably make her perspire, which Sasuke wouldn't like. Sakura giggled a little and said, I hope he's drunk all the time. As she combed through her hair, she thought back to the client. I hope he's not always this mean. Maybe once he sobers up a bit. Still, it's a mission with Sasuke-kun, so a drunk client would probably move slower, meaning more time with Sasuke-kun. After all, she needed to look her best. As Naruto entered his designated room in the Hyuga household, he found it more difficult than usual to control his rage. With the exception of a tiny picture of him and his teammates, it was almost as empty as the typical Hyuga room. He nearly slammed the door and began to rant as soon as he was certain his hosts wouldn't hear him say, "That old bastard needs some respect beaten into him." He became enraged and gathered some of his belongings much more quickly because his room was clean. He complained, "I'll show him short and stupid," and then paused for a moment before saying, No, I'll show him how not short or stupid I am. That'll show him." He smiled with his new plan, which was admittedly not very good, and continued packing for a while. There was a loud knock on the door. Naruto was not accustomed to having people in his room, so he said, Come in." He wasn't even used to people coming to his house, to be honest. People tried to avoid him as much as possible when he was in his room, which was one thing that had remained the same since the fire. The door slowly opened to reveal Hishi Hyuga. "Naruto, may we talk?" Hishi asked. "I have been informed by the Hokage that you will be participating in a C-rank mission. Your first, I believe." After Naruto nodded, Hishi entered and shut the door. "Yeah, but why would Gigi.san tell you?" "Hishi, Sama. As your semi-permanent host, your duties are of import to me. You are a temporary member of the Hyuga clan, and as such I am privy to all your missions. It is my responsibility to make sure you do not become involved in something you should not. At least until you find a new home. Regardless as to that, I must request something of you." Having not yet fully come to trust Hishi, Naruto tensed up as he watched him suspiciously as he asked, "Is this about the favor I owe you?" Hishi stops and slightly shakes his head. "Not at all, Naruto. This is more of a briefing than a request. I apologize for indicating otherwise earlier. Your input is not required. Just listen. Time is short now for both of us, so mincing words will only waste time." As Hishi spoke, Naruto couldn't help but think, "Sheesh, please be a little more polite about it. You live with the Hyuga clan, and as such your performance will reflect our ability to take care of our guests. If you perform poorly, it will reflect badly and there will be negative consequences. For both of us." Naruto saw that there didn't seem to be any animosity toward him. Rather, Hishi appeared to be generally worried about his performance, at the very least. "Perhaps it's not for me alone." When Naruto saw that Hishi seemed to be anticipating a response, he snapped to attention. No need to worry, Gij," he said, coughing to hide his error. "Hishi Sama, I'll be the best damn ninja I can be. No one will be able to say anything bad about you guys," was his next statement. "Very well. I shall leave you to gather your provisions in peace, but before I go, one last thing. You may wish to speak to Hinata before you leave on your mission. I am sure that she will be very eager to hear about your upcoming task. You two seem to be good friends. I am positive that she will be hurt if she finds out about the good news from someone else." Hishi appeared to look at Naruto for a few moments with some sort of vague curiosity before responding. As he rushed to collect the rest of his belongings, Naruto almost slapped himself in the face. He had forgotten about Hinata because of everything that had transpired. He almost ran to the door after taking a quick look at the clock. It was time to leave, and he had just 10 minutes left. Kiba was blustering outside the Hokage's building, "So anyway, yeah, that's why I'm the best guy on the team." They had just arrived for their first mission of the day in Kurenai. They were allowed a brief period of time to relax outside because it was right after training. When his companion boasted too much, Shino responded, "I may be wrong, Kiba, but I seem to recall that you lost both matches against me. I was just going easy on you. It wouldn't be a good idea to destroy my team mate's confidence, would it?" Kiba smiled in response, without missing a beat. Shino poked Kiba swiftly on the arm, allowing a bug to rest on his team mate's jacket. "I just planted one bug on your arm. However, while you were distracted by this, I planted several more on your leg. You swipe at me, but I dodge and retreat. Being none the wiser, you are steadily weakened until such a time where I come back to finish the job. Sadly, you're drained at this point and I take an easy victory. Hypothetically, I just won." "Yeah, I guess you did. But you wouldn't last 20 seconds if it were a, hey, is that Naruto?" Kiba added as Hinata laughed softly. As she turned to face the approaching orange figure, Hinata quickly fell silent and said, "Yes. That is Naruto.kun." Kiba's thoughts were interrupted when Naruto arrived. "I wonder what he's doing all the way out here. I didn't see his team anywhere near here." He caught Hinata in a tender embrace and gazed into her eyes, saying, "Hinata, I finally realized why you've always been so nice to me. I just had to tell you when I found out you felt the same." "Felt the same?" I guess I always have, but I just didn't realize it. I know I may not be the greatest ninja yet, but if you'd be willing to try, I'd like you to be my girlfriend. Please? He said, laughing a little as he kissed her cheek. I love you, Hinata. With tears of joy in her eyes, Hinata said, yes, Naruto-kun. I would love to be your girlfriend. It is what I have always wanted since I first met you. Naruto's smile widened even more as he whispered her name, Hinata, and then pulled his lips away from her before kissing her quickly again. Hinata. The blonde teen in front of her suddenly became very loud, waking her from her reverie. Oh good, you snapped out of it. Listen, I don't have a lot of time, I've got to hurry. Hinata hung her head in shame as Naruto tried to speak to her, but she quickly looked up when he called her name again. I came to say good-bye. I've got a C-rank mission and we're leaving in about 2 minutes and I can't be late. Sorry I couldn't stay longer. Tell you all about it when I get back. What a rip-off. We could handle a C-rank mission, don't ya think, Akamaru? Kiba cried. I can't believe he got a C-rank mission before us. Akamaru snarled. But Kiba went on. Exactly, I bet he's doing something really fun like fighting bandits. Hell, he'll probably have a whole lot of fun. Maybe he'll even end up fighting an enemy ninja or two. Lucky bastard. Not like he could handle it. Kiba was about to say something else when he noticed Shino glaring at him. He went on, I am sure that Naruto will be fine, Hinata. He never gives up from what I've seen. He won't let anything stop him from coming back to the village to tell you about what he's done. Kiba. I am sure that Hinata would appreciate it if you were a little quieter. He moved to stand closer to Hinata, who had been standing as though stunned since Naruto left. Kiba attempted to correct his previous mistake by saying, yeah, I mean he's going to be the Hokage, right? He can't do that if he doesn't come back. The young Hyuga would never know how much their efforts to lift her spirits meant to her. I only hope Kiba and Shino are correct. Her final thought before her sensei came back from the Hokage's office to tell them of their next assignment was, please stay safe, Naruto-kun. A chubby blonde woman sat in a filthy casino in a town far from Konoha's walls, the name of which had faded from the sign. A brunette with a small pig sat next to her. When the blonde inebriatedly called for another hand of cards, the brunette gave her a disgruntled look. When the blonde lost, stupid cards. I hate these things. Why'd I even bother? The brunette woman did not appear to be at all surprised. The brunette's foul mood appeared to spill out, because you're a compulsive addict who can't control herself. The blonde grinned as she put more chips on the table and turned back to her companion, saying, I can stop whenever I want. But I don't, because that's for quitters, and say whatever you want about me, Shizune. I am no quitter. Besides, what gives you the right to be so angry? I'm paying for your expenses, aren't I? She asked. Yes. With my money. A huge plume of smoke erupted off the table as she turned back to face her opponent, a portly balding man in his 50s, and exclaimed, my hand's unbeatable. It was never clear whether this was an honest remark or a bluff. It's an investment, Shizune. You'll be rich before the night's out. Trust me. From the smoke cloud came a slow, drawling voice that said, Tsunade. Same, you are still alive. Tsunade could see the medium-sized, dark green slug with short eye stalks and yellow stripes as soon as the smoke had cleared. Tsunade's expression suggested that she didn't like the slug. Osoi, of course I'm alive. Who in the hell told you otherwise? She added. And get off the table. You're ruining the cards. The young brunette grinned and nodded in appreciation at the slug's awkward remark. Hello Shizune. Chan. You are beautiful as always. It seems that every time I see you I think you cannot get any more lovely. But I'm always happy to be proved wrong on this case. She turned slowly back to face the gambling senin and said, as for who told me, it was my last summoner. As soon as her mentor turned to face Shizune, the smile vanished from her face. Tsunade. Sama. Osoi interrupted Tsunade's tirade and Shizune's futile attempts to clarify, saying, Shizune. Why in the hell would you go around telling the slugs I was dead? Thought you'd become the next big slug summoner, huh? Wanted to take a crack at the legendary medic Nin? Thought you've gotten good enough to take me out, did you? Maybe you just wanted the slugs to abandon me? Well, I can tell you, little girl, It was not the angelic Shizune Chan who implied this. Well then, who told you she was dead, Osoi? Shizune asked after letting out a sigh of relief. Much more quickly than he did with Tsunade, the slug answered, a young man named Uzumaki. I believe his first name was Naruto. With a slight sigh and a longing look at the table, Tsunade turned to Shizune and said, pack up everything, Shizune. We need to leave as soon as possible. Uzumaki. That name sounds familiar, but I just can't place it. You're done gambling? Really? You still have money though, not that I'm not glad but, why? Shizune asked, taking a step back in shock at her mentor's reaction. Tsunade stared at the younger woman. In case you didn't notice, something's come up. Some little bastard managed to find where I hid the scroll. I didn't think any of those repossession bastards would be able to find it. Tisk, we need to find him though. I suppose I could always ask Jiraiya. He seems to. The boy is in Konoha. Tsunade instantly tensed up, her angry expression turning to one of startled sadness. Konoha, how do you know? She asked. He was wearing the head band. It's similar to the one you wore when you lived there, as well as the one that looked absolutely divine sitting upon Shizune Chan's forehead. It was a different shade though. A slightly lighter blue than you wore. With a curt response, Tsunade said, thank you, that will be all. After turning slowly, the slug responded, no respect. Farewell my angelic Shizune Chan. Osoi then vanished in yet another cloud of smoke. There was a brief pause before Shizune asked, Are we still going? She was aware of her mentor's distaste for being close to Konoha, let alone inside it. After giving the dealer a final, yearning glance and pointing to her cards, she said, we have to. They then started to head for the exits to start their journey. Sakura said softly, trying to control her excitement, which likely exceeded that of her blonde teammate. Naruto, calm down. She actually said this more as a habit than out of genuine annoyance. I can't help it, Sakura-chan. This is the first time I've been out of the village. Are you sure I'm going to be safe with this brat? He seems a little stupid. Well, I'm a Junin, so I'm sure my genin can afford to be a little over excited. I'm 100% sure that at least 1/4 of this team will perform perfectly. When his mentor said, wow, thanks Kakashi Sensei, I won't let you down, Naruto practically smiled. Nobody else in the 5-person group seemed to believe that the words were intended to elevate Naruto, but nobody brought it up to the ecstatic blonde as they set out. Just before it vanished from view, Naruto took one final glance back at their hometown. I hope Hinata will keep up with her training while I'm gone. He sighed and turned back to face the road ahead. Say Naruto. Sakura scooted closer to the blonde after overhearing Naruto wondering out loud. With a number of ideas already forming in her mind, she asked slyly, why are you so interested if Hinata is training or not? In that one sentence, Sakura had already decided why. Naruto and Hinata are dating. When that pig Ino hears this, I'm willing to wager she will lose it. I promised to help her kick her cousin's ass. Sakura paused her stride and only regained consciousness when her sensei glanced back at her. She whispered to Naruto, trying to catch up with the others, wait, why does she want to kick his ass? She doesn't seem like that kind of person. I always thought she was such a sweet little girl, questionable taste in men for sure, but a sweet girl none the less. Well, he keeps insulting her so. Tazuna laughed to himself before realizing that his sake bottle was empty. Don't talk about your love life and your loser girlfriend, ya little runt. You'll draw more attention than it's worth. This moment of silence allowed Naruto to respond. You son of a. But then another adult voiced their opinion. While I would have worded it more delicately, Naruto, I must agree with our client on this one. There will be plenty of time while we are setting up camp to socialize. Try to pay attention to possible threats instead of focusing on the past. Not to mention that there are a couple questions I have about the mission that I have left until now. Kakashi appeared embarrassed at this point. So that means I need to be able to hear him. Tazuna and Kakashi's conversation was the only sound as the group moved in a kind of silence. Sakura turned to face a tree as they came to a stop. Kakashi. Sensei? She asked herself at this point. Weird. I thought I saw something up there, must have been a squirrel or something. Yes, Sakura? She felt a bit silly for asking, are there any ninja in Wave Country? After reflecting on the declining standards during this period of peace, Kakashi said, well, no, not in Wave Country. I thought they told you kids about this in the academy. At this point, Naruto surprised everyone by saying, aren't there only 5 countries that have ninja? At this point, Tazuna appeared intrigued, saying, I heard it was a bunch of places actually. Kakashi sighed before responding, I see some information is in order for those of us who are less informed. There are 5 very powerful ninja villages as Naruto guessed towards. These are the only villages where the leader is assigned the title of Kage. The villages are Sand, Leaf, Mist, Rock, and Cloud. But like our honorable client pointed out, almost every country has some form of shinobi program. None of them would be anywhere near as large or extensive as our villages, though, since we use shinobi to make a living. Most other countries, excluding the other 4 great villages, use ninja primarily as a deterrent for war. Sadly, coming from a great village blinds most ninja to the power of these smaller villages. If they all banded together, they may be able to stand up against, or possibly overpower, a great village. But political tensions. Kakashi paused for a second as he looked straight ahead for some reason. Naruto would have sworn he was staring at a puddle. Sorry about that. I didn't get all the sleep I needed last night. As I was saying, political tensions prevent this from happening. Hey, I appear to have rambled a bit. How are you holding up, Tazuna? In response, Tazuna grinned and said, "Oh, I'm great just as long." What the hell? Two ninja materialized in the middle of the road, and a bladed chain encircled Kakashi. The two yanked on their chain and ripped the oldest ninja into a tangle of bloody fragments in front of the frightened Genin and Tazuna as the raspy voice said, "One down." It came from inside the wilder looking ninja's rebreather. Kiba yelled at his bug wielding teammate, "Come on Shino, just admit that bugs can't hold a candle to dogs as a ninja companion." As the team waited for their sensei, who appeared to be running late, the two of them had been fighting for almost an hour. Although this wasn't the first time, it was the longest they had gone without Kurenai's assistance. In direct combat, you were correct, Kiba. However, in stealth missions and indirect combat, a dog is inferior to my insects. No matter how well trained someone is, they will not suspect a small insect of anything. That is, of course, assuming they notice it in the first place. A dog attracts too much attention. Who wants to use bugs though? That's so boring. Dogs are much more fun. Combat is where all the glory is. I would rather be bored and alive than dead after having a little fun. Also in my favor is that bugs are easier to replace. What would you do if Akamaru was killed? Kiba cast a worried glance at his companion, who was dozing off next to a tree. To be honest, he was unable to respond to Shino's query. He knew that Akamaru would pass away years before he did, but he ignored the thought and concentrated on other things each time it occurred to him. I apologize. I appear to have gone too far. Kiba interrupted his reflective silence to respond to his friend, saying, "No worries. It was a good point. But I won't have to worry about that kind of thing for years. Where is Kurenai?" "Sensei." With a frustrated shout, "She's never been this late before." At this point, Hinata stood quietly and began using a nearby tree to practice her Juken. Before Kiba spoke, her two teammates silently observed her for a few minutes. "What are you doing, Hinata?" "I have to get stronger, nah. Naruto.kun is go. Go. Going to be company counting on me wh. When the year is over so I cannot fail him," she responded without pausing for even a fraction of a second in her practice. "ICA. Cannot waste tea. Time Ju. Just because Kurenai Sensei is late. Have to keep trying." For a few moments, Kiba gazed at his female teammate. Normally, she wasn't this motivated. She had shared with them both the story of Naruto's battle with Neji and the promise that followed. Kiba, however, didn't think either of them had thought it would have had that kind of an impact on Hinata. Shino also turned to face Kiba and stood a few meters away from his initial position, saying, "You are correct, Hinata. Kiba, assist me through a sparring match." There was nothing Kiba could say except, "What? We have team training today. Regardless of if Kurenai Sensei is here or not, we must complete our assigned task." After a brief pause, Kiba said, "Hell yeah. See, we don't need her to tell us what to do. We've got this in the bag," with a broad smile spreading across his face. The female voice behind the young Inuzuka said, "Is that so? I guess I should just go home then." "Where the hell were you? You're an hour late." Kiba yelled at his teacher as everyone, including Hinata, turned to face their tardy sensei. Even though he was forgiving, she should have at least informed them of her extended absence. "Well, I would have warned you, but I didn't get a warning either. Suffice to say, something came up and it took a little longer than usual to fix it." As he asked, "An entire hour?" Shino noticed a slight flush on his sensei's cheeks. "Yes. I hurried as fast as I could. Sorry I'm late, but I'm here now." Kurenai looked away for a moment, a habit more appropriate for Hinata, and then she nodded slowly. "So as a gift to make up for how late I was, how about something a little different today?" Kurenai watched as Shino nodded slowly. He hoped it would be some kind of C-ranked mission. "Hell yeah. What is it, sensei?" he exclaimed. The fact that Naruto's team received one while his team did not still bothered him. Kurenai grinned as she said, "Training with Team 10, with a start." If someone had asked Shino what he thought of Team 10 at first, he would have said that, in terms of shinobi, they were a little disappointing. It seemed to him that they had no interest in becoming ninja. Team 10 was taking a break when his own team showed up. Shino didn't mind that, but he did think there was something wrong with the way they were having fun. Shino himself always liked to reflect on what went well and what didn't, and talk about this with his teammates. Team 10, on the other hand, didn't even seem like a team. It would have seemed like they were just 3 people in the same place unless someone had told them otherwise. However, following a quick introduction, each Team 10 member developed a fondness for a teammate. While Ino was talking to Shino, Hinata, about how to subdue Sakura and establish beyond a reasonable doubt that she was the one who had won Sasuke's affection, Shoji was sharing his snacks with Kiba and they were discussing the advantages and disadvantages of different restaurants. Then Shikamaru appeared. Shoji claimed that he had been asleep for at least an hour. The genin. Using Bug side. Team 10 seemed to collaborate more with his teammates than with one another. You guys are really lucky, you know. Asuma. Sensei is always late. Ino's sudden sigh was loud enough to draw the introverted genin's attention. Shino almost lost interest in this statement, but he returned it when Ino went on to talk to his team. I mean, today he was late a whole hour. Ino made a brief sound of annoyance. Gave us some lie about how something came up and it took longer to fix than usual. Well, it seems like I was correct. Shino reflected. I would assume this supports my theory. Shino was stopped in his tracks before he could think much more because their 2 sensei appeared again. Asuma lit a cigarette in his mouth and remarked, I see that all of you are getting along nicely. This is unacceptable. The final word was so loud and forceful that even Shino, who took pride in his composure, scurried away from the big man. He looked at the 2 conscious genin from Team 10 and saw that their eyes were wide with terror. Since Choji and Ino's shocked expressions told Shino that Asuma rarely got this way, Shino got the impression that the group of teenagers had truly misbehaved. Asuma's expression changed from one of confused anger to one of apologetic embarrassment when she said, Heh, sorry about that. Asuma scratched the back of his head and said, Anyway, it's time for training to start again. Break up into 2 teams please. I do that every year I get a genin team. It's too funny to see them act like that. 2 groups of 3 were formed from the 2 genin teams, which included the now awake Shikamaru. Shikamaru, Ino, and Shoji remained together, as did Shino, Hinata, and Kiba. This did not please Asuma. Oh, alright then, I was hoping for more variety. Anyway, here's what we're going to do. We're practicing assassination and defending a client. To do this we're going to play a game you might be familiar with. Rescue the damsel. Now Team 1 has to rescue this beautiful damsel. The genin initially believed that Asuma was pointing to Kurenai, but a scarecrow appeared when she emerged from the room wearing an apologetic smile. A tattered wig of blonde hair was sewn onto the scarecrow's head. Its eyes were beady, and its lips and lipstick were horribly drawn. It had a purple dress on, and the stick that was firmly rooted in the ground had blue ninja sandals tied to it that were all but destroyed. But the necklace bearing the name was the most noticeable feature and the one that generated the most controversy. Ino yelled, pointing to the big kanji for Ino on the scarecrow's necklace. I cannot believe you named that ugly thing after me. For a moment, Asuma appeared a little taken aback and started to say something, but Ino interrupted him. I mean, why in the hell would you do that, you jerk? I'm like 600,000 times more beautiful than that thing. Asuma attempted to interrupt once more, but Ino refused to listen. I could understand it if you named it after someone ugly, but I mean, look at that thing, it's... Ino. My dad named it. This lovely young lady isn't named after you. It was named way back before you were even a baby. No harm, right? Asuma interrupted Ino as she tried to explain. After complaining for a short while, Ino sighed, fine, whatever. Asuma began making wildly dramatic hand gestures, saying, that's right kids. There's a prize, care to tell them what they're playing for my lovely assistant. He then pointed to Shino, Kiba, and Hinata, saying, has to stop the other team from rescuing our leading lady. But there's a catch to make all of this more interesting. Kurenai let out a sigh at Asuma's actions before responding, simple, the losers have to pay for dinner. Also, I'm not your assistant. Asuma chuckled for a while before continuing. Now me and Kurenai will be adding a few unpredictable twists into this as we see fit. Team 2, you must protect our beautiful friend here for an entire hour since I'm hungry and don't want to wait too long. Alright. Team 1 follow me while Team 2 prepares their defenses. Remember Kurenai no helping them. In response, Kurenai sneered, I wouldn't help my team any more than you would help yours. Just before he disappeared, Asuma said, you have a half hour to prepare. You'll know when the time starts. He laughed once more as he led his team away. Shikamaru and his group watched their target while crouching in the surrounding brush. They talked about the situation in low voices. I can't believe they're so relaxed. It's almost like they're Yushika. They're not even looking for us. I guess they think we're still looking for them. Choji suggested, well, with how long it took us to find them, time is on their side. Shikamaru then spoke up. He noticed the looks his teammates were giving him and changed from his crouched position to one that was a little more comfortable. They already know that we're here. Sighing, he kept going, they're a tracking team. Kiba is a member of the Inuzuka clan, so he shares their sense of smell. He probably smelled your perfume 20 minutes ago. There's no way we can do a sneak attack at this point and they know it. You think maybe he could have heard my chip bags instead? Choji asked at this point. Shikamaru gave a nod. It wasn't completely unrealistic. But Shikamaru was aware of Choji's true motivation for bringing it up. Even if it meant taking the blame, Choji was always quick to keep his friends out of trouble. We're not cut out for stealth, we need to attack. With a tone of curiosity in her voice, Ino responded, wow Shika, you're not usually this into an exercise. She appeared somewhat taken aback. It's only a game, Ino. Besides, it'd be too troublesome to pay for everyone's meal myself. What do you mean, Shika? He looked at his big teammate and saw an embarrassed smile. Alright, well, we're not going to accomplish anything sitting around. Here's the plan. You spent all your money on perfume and clothes, so you won't be able to pay. I doubt our senseis will pay. Also, Choji was saving up for your birthday present. Kiba gave Shino a quick glance. He thought he could hear his reticent teammate whispering to the scarecrow. Even though that idea was strange, he was concerned because he had been doing it the entire session. He said, I can't believe they haven't tried anything yet. Let's just go, and, as he walked over to his teammate, leaving Hinata to maintain watch alone for a few minutes. The bug user coughed lightly before continuing, Kiba, we need to stop them from stealing Han. If it helps, pretend she's an injured princess. If they waste the time limit, it's good for us. Hinata began moving cautiously in the direction of her teammates. Alright, fine. By the way, Shino, what did you almost call this thing earlier? It sounded like my sis. A slip of the tongue. Alright, company, could we possibly send a few BU bugs over there to Dr. Drain them? Just in case they decide to attack? Yeah, that won't bother you too much, will it, oh wise leader? In response to Kiba's sarcasm, Shino said, I already did so earlier. The bugs were killed swiftly. The lazy one seems to know. His were killed first. Shikamaru, I believe, is smarter than we gave him credit for. Shino was mildly amused. Ino questioned, I could capture Shino instead, as she questioned why she felt the need to apprehend the team's weakest fighter. You'd both die. The Aburame clan has to exert a small amount of mental force to top the bugs from devouring from the inside. The split-second lapse would give them enough time to start destroying the both of you. Ew, alright then, let's do this. As Asuma and Kurenai watched the genin, a slight breeze blew through the forest. Asuma's face lit up with a tiny grin. Before a net arrived and ensnared Akamaru, Shino's only warning to the team was, here they come. A big ball of green leapt into the air and began to move toward the team members and, consequently, the scarecrow before any of them could quickly rush to the poor dog's aid. Shino and Hinata were able to jump out of the way, but Kiba was unable to move when he tried to do so. As he moved into view, Shikamaru declared, Cage Main no Jutsu is a success. Hinata, help! Kiba yelled as loudly as he could, his mind racing with panic as Choji rolled in the direction of his target. Out of Kiba's line of sight, he mocked Hinata's lovely voice, saying, not a chance, dog breath. Hinata! Kiba exclaimed, surprised that Hinata would disparage anyone, much less him. In order to say something that made little sense to the dog. Ninja, Hinata completely ignored Kiba. Holy hell, she's just, wow, you'd never know just looking at her. Shikamaru turned his head to face his teammate, letting Kiba see him, and sighed as she rubbed his head, making him say the same thing. Ino, stop feeling up Hinata. Hinata stood in front of everyone, feeling her own breasts with a strange, curious expression on her face as well as another emotion that Kiba was unable to recognize. Hinata. Shikamaru sighed again, drawing Kiba's focus back to himself, saying, it's not Hinata. It's Ino doing her mind switch. Oh, and look at that. Shikamaru then showed Kiba Choji, who appeared queasy, standing next to a crushed scarecrow. Oh man, I don't feel good. Shikamaru, we won, Ino exclaimed as he hurried to embrace Shikamaru, who was still in Hinata's body. The indifferent teenager pushed Hinata's indigo-haired body away from him and replied, not quite. What do you? But no more was needed because the scarecrow's location was buzzing a lot, indicating that it was a clone made completely of bugs. Huh. You gotta hand it to Shino. He knows how to hide something. Just give up, we've won. Kiba exclaims in response to this. Choji, put an explosive tag on the tree. The brief moment of surprise in Kiba's eyes was sufficient for Shikamaru to ask, how did you know? Shikamaru yawned after saying, I didn't. I just guessed. You just confirmed my theory. Blow up the tree, Choji, so we can stop playing. But I don't have explosive notes with me. I don't either. Shikamaru sighed after hearing a similar story from Ino. Just climb it. It should be on one of the top branches. But I'm no good at tree climbing. How can I get up there? Oh no, a freak meteor shower. Asuma's position suddenly produced a kunai with an explosive note. The tree was easily toppled by the explosion, and the scarecrow dropped out of it, into Choji's line of sight. But he stumbled when he tried to grab it. Asuma, why didn't you tell me that your student had narcolepsy? Kurenai said casually. Kurenai, that's cheating and you know it. Oh yeah, and the meteor shower, wasn't? Asuma resignedly said, alright, while making a number of hand gestures. But this affects both teams equally. It's a new jutsu of mine. For test purposes it's fogged. He concluded by blowing out a lot of smoke into the clearing, making it difficult for anyone to see. Asuma. What? It affects both teams. They'll catch lung cancer from this. Think before you act. A loud smack reverberated through the misty clearing. You're always on me about lung cancer. Let it go. With great amusement, Ino observed the exchange between the two senseis. Roll. Reversal always made her laugh, which she found ironic given her limited bloodline. However, Shikamaru chose to ruin her enjoyment when she burst out laughing. Ino. What are you doing? Get the scarecrow. Why don't you get it, Shika? Shikamaru was rapidly growing weary of this game. Because I can't see it. You have Hinata's eyes. He could only take so much, no matter how skilled his opponents were. So, he responded, she has the Byakugan. That means you can see the scarecrow, now go get it, with a burst of irritation. Oh right, sorry about that. She began to feel lethargic as she walked toward the scarecrow's prone figure on the ground. I don't think Hinata slept much yesterday, she said, barely smiling as she approached the scarecrow. Probably thinking about Naruto. Her legs gave out under her, forcing her to crawl. As she looked down, she saw several bugs on her hand. Oh hello buggies, how are you? I'm tired. Do you ever get tired? The bugs didn't respond. So Ino giggled, saying, I'm usually terrified of you guys, but you're not so bad, kind of cute actually. Choji Ino fell on the other side of the scarecrow and reached for it, only to discover that it was out of reach. With those last words, Hinata's body remained motionless, save for the rhythmic rise and fall of her breasts. You know something, Ino? Chan? Asuma. Sensei was right. You are really pretty. Want to go on a date? I'll just take a quick nap and then we can have a night on the town. It'll be the best night ever. Your friend does not pay much attention, does she? Shino asked Shikamaru as he hopped down from a nearby tree. Hey, I'm afraid not. Huh? Kiba exclaimed, laughing out loud for a few seconds before mocking Shikamaru by saying, it's 2 against 1. You can't win. Both of his opponents grimaced in response to a slight smirk. You're right. I can't. But I can make sure that you still lose. Nobody was able to stop Shikamaru's next move because it was so sudden and happened so quickly. As the timer sounded, Shikamaru, peering through the quickly fading fog, threw a kunai and pierced the scarecrow through the temple. Asuma staggered slowly from his spot on the sidelines in the direction of Hinata's unconscious body. Ino? Are you okay? He said in a feeble voice that sounded like a child worried about a loved one's safety. As the Junin's true intentions became apparent, Shino stopped speaking. She will be fine. My bugs merely knocked her out. Besides, wouldn't her real body be? Asuma was crying uncontrollably as he stood over the scarecrow's body. He tried to stop himself from crying, saying things like, speak to me beautiful. Come on, you'll be okay. No, you'll be fine. No, please, don't say things like that. We'll get the best medics too. Yes, I know, please don't leave me alone. I'll do it for you. I never was able to tell you. I love you, my princess. Oh, grow up. Well, it looks like both teams lost. You guys didn't protect her, but Shikamaru's team didn't capture her, Kurenai said, glaring at the man who was crying as he finally emerged from the woods. Furiously, Kiba snarled, oh, this is bullshit. We would have won if you didn't cheat, and rushed to free Akamaru from the net. I don't cheat. The goal was to rescue our ally, but since we couldn't do that, it's our duty as shinobi to spare them the torture that would surely have occurred if we didn't put them out of their misery. Shikamaru responded by defending himself. Between sobs, Asuma was still kneeling next to his beloved scarecrow when he said, "She wasn't an ally shinobi though. She was a beautiful damsel in distress whose rich and powerful father will declare war on Konoha for killing his daughter. What do you say to that? We attempted to save your daughter, Mr. Kakashi, but an enemy ninja. By the time we arrived, it was too late. We did everything we could." Shikamaru responds with sincerity. Asuma laughs at this and releases Choji from Kurenai's genjutsu, saying, "I suppose," while wiping a tear from his eye and assisting Choji to stand up. "What do you guys say, that when Ino and Hinata wake up, we go out and eat?" Asuma turns to Kurenai after everyone has given their consent. "See how happy they are to pay for our food?" she asks. "Hey, but neither team won. That's exactly the point. Both of you lost. That means that you have to pay for the victor's food. I feel compelled to point out that you and Kurenai Sensei are on our teams." Shino made a statement. Asuma nodded wisely as Hinata began to stir beside him. "Us? Oh no, we had nothing to do with this mission. We're just innocent bystanders in this Team 1 and Team 2 conflict. As everyone knows, the best way to win is to stay uninvolved in a deadly mission." They were informed that Ino was in a similar state by a sound coming from the surrounding bushes. "Putting off paying for dinner was more trouble than it was worth," Shikamaru said. "Alright, let's go. I am relieved that I will not have to pay as much as I had anticipated." Asuma's voice was solemn. "Kurenai, we need to eat as much as possible." He let out a sob as more tears threatened to fall, for all the meals Ino will miss. He then led Shikamaru, the bewildered Choji, and Ino into town with a final sob. "Alright, you two, pick up his girlfriend so we can eat. I feel like barbecue." 20 minutes into their meal, Kiba was still unable to fully understand how this could have happened. Asuma had been stuffing piece after piece of meat for every moment of the meal. Kiba whispered to Choji, who appeared to be eating equally as much, "Do you think he's crying because of the spices or because he's still sad over the stupid scarecrow?" The same thought crossed Hinata's mind. Asuma glared at Kiba before Kurenai slapped him, saying, "Let's kill the love of your life and see how you handle it." With a slight huff, she remarked, "I'm sure she'd want you to move on with your life." Asuma sobbed uncontrollably, "Just let me have my moment." Before anyone was able to look away from the sight of a mature ninja male sobbing, the diner was silent for a minute. But all of a sudden, Asuma became motionless. What is it, sensei?" Hinata asked, worriedly watching as all movement stopped in both Junin. Asuma's voice was almost physical with fear as he said quietly, "No one move. No noise. Choji, stop eating. Just, don't move. I hear something." The genin wondered what could possibly make a man as big and powerful as Asuma so afraid in such a short period of time. For a few moments, nobody in the group moved. Everybody at the table was motionless. Choji's shoulders dropped slightly as the meat burned, but that was the only movement. The intense fear that seized the Junins vanished as swiftly as it had appeared. With a sigh of relief, Asuma added, "All right, he's gone. Keep eating, everyone." After a moment, he added, "For Ino. Sama." The genin resumed their meal when Ino sighed in anger. From the ceiling a young, loud voice exclaimed, "Haha. Treating your students to a meal, Asuma." "Hello, guy," Asuma responded, slamming his head against the table so forcefully that multiple objects dropped to the ground. Nearly every genin was startled to see the man as he fell from the ceiling. It was impossible for Ino to ignore how awfully he was dressed. Is there any way anyone could find that attractive? Shino was preoccupied with the man's flawless smile, which made his own teeth seem incredibly unclean in contrast. "I should probably go home and brush them," Shino said. After being taken aback by the man's mode of arrival, Shikamaru and Choji wondered together, how did he stay on the ceiling? But when none of the current Junin continued to talk, Hinata made the decision to say, "Hello, guy. Sensei," to the man she had seen many times when he escorted her home to pick up her cousin. Guy looked brightly at the genin and said, "Oh, I see. Hello, my youthful Hinata. I see that you are all eating together with my good friend and his gur." But before he could say anything more, a voice as loud as Guy's broke the oppressive atmosphere. "Guy. Sensei." Kiba turned to face the door and saw the three who had literally rushed into the eatery to greet the boisterous Junin. Kiba was initially drawn to the person who resembled the Junin almost exactly, except for the jacket. "Maybe his son?" Kiba asked. "So another Hyuga? Doesn't look as nice as Hinata, kind of looks like a good fight. I thought they didn't let family members be on the same team." The second one only caught his attention because he had the same eyes as his teammate. "So another Hyuga? Doesn't look as nice as Hinata, kind of looks like a good fight." squashing the alpha male tendency that rose within him. He glanced at the third girl, and his jaw dropped as something about her just struck him as unbelievably attractive. She's not even that curvy, but, and it was true. Although she didn't have the curves that Kiba had endlessly dreamed of, something about her confident air caught his attention. Kiba was startled out of his reverie by another loud shout from the green youth. "Guy! Sensei!" shouted the green youth as he vaulted over 3 tables in quick succession. "Guy! Sensei! We located you," Guy responded. As his teammates caught up to him, they apologized throughout. The 2 Junin in question shifted uneasily in their seats, as if they would prefer to be anywhere else than with this noisy man. "That you did, Lee. I seem to have gotten sucked into youthful conversation with my good friends here. But that is not important. Fair and square. You prevailed. I'll reward you all 3 with lunch at this upscale restaurant." Before the girl with the brown hair could ask what he was looking at, Kiba jumped up and yelled, "You could eat with us." Ino saw a sudden change in Kiba's behavior as he glanced at her and then down at his pocket. All 3 of the Junin gave him a gloomy look. "Inviting another team to a meal?" Guy responded in a low, menacing voice. "Attempting to trick them into divulging information? Are you looking for trade secrets?" As he leaned closer and closer, Kiba could have sworn that the temperature dropped 10 degrees. However, just before Kurenai moved to defend her student from the suddenly hostile Junin, he broke out into a smile. "Just kidding. Trying to learn from people older than you is a great way to expand one's own youth," he said, pausing briefly as he was overcome with laughter. After all, it is best to combine the wisdom of age with the vigor of youth. As they crammed themselves into the table that barely fit them all, Kiba's demeanor changed. "How youthful of you to realize this and try your best to put this lesson into practice." Kiba felt a little embarrassed as he attempted to explain something to the large man, but was cut off almost before he could say, "Yes, it even took my youthful Lee here a good 2 months before he learned the lesson." Before Guy arrived, Asuma and Kurenai seemed to be enjoying their lunch, but now they seemed to want nothing more than to leave. They kept looking at one another and then at Guy as if they were having a private conversation. They had never seen anyone like the big man in green, and every genin except Ino, Kiba, and Hinata were staring at him, seemingly analyzing every move he made. They looked at the newly introduced Lee multiple times, seemingly wondering who he was. Hinata, on the other hand, seemed more interested in Neji. She was almost always fidgeting and staring at her cousin while he ignored her, as if his presence alone had caused her to become anxious. Previously, she had felt uneasy, but now she just seemed to be yelling for assistance. However, all the speculation in the world didn't prepare Ino for what happened next. Ino was observing Kiba, and something about his behavior seemed strange. His eyes kept shifting from the brown-haired girl to his pocket, and after a while, Ino noticed that he appeared embarrassed when he looked at it. "Guy. Sensei?" Looking at the boy, Guy paused her meal and said, "Company, could I ask you an youthful favor?" Despite all the physical evidence to the contrary, it seemed that Kakashi had been correct when he said that Guy was the only man on the planet who could never be too happy. To everyone's surprise, Guy became even happier than he already was. "But naturally, I'd be pleased to assist you in any way you require. After all, it's where I belong as a Junin." "This is so embarrassing," Kiba said, fidgeting as he flushed. Well, me and my team lost a challenge and," he begins after taking a deep breath. Guy gave a sage response. "Ah yes, me and my darling Lee often fail our challenges. However, whatever the consequences, you must power through it. How else can you get stronger if you don't accept the consequences?" "Well, you see, the thing is that I don't have enough money on me. My mom kind of cut me off because I should be making enough, and well, I wanted to ask you if," Kiba said after pausing briefly following this outburst. Kiba almost fell out of his seat when the beautiful green beast interrupted the embarrassed genin again, but he said, "I see where this is going. As an Inuzuka, you rely mostly on taijutsu during a fight, and knowing of my renown as a taijutsu master, you sought me out in order to learn what you could, right?" Guy grinned brightly, almost blinding everyone at the table except Shino, who was shielded from the intense flash of light by his sunglasses. Well, actually I just wanted an Kiba muttered for a moment before he was able to say aloud. "A loan. I can pay you back. I just sort of ran out." Kiba stared with a slight discomfort before responding slowly and uncertainly. Asuma was certain that he would share what transpired with his grandchildren. It silenced the notorious Miyato Guy, the self-described youthful Junin extraordinaire and beautiful green beast of Konoha. He didn't make any noise at all. As he considered the request, he just sat motionless like a statue. But in the end, he got better. "Oh well," he said, sheepishly rubbing the back of his head. I see. Well, that's one of the follies of youth, I suppose, to do such foolish things. Being youthful has its positives and negatives after all. As quickly as Guy's fire had gone out, it rekindled with even more intensity, and he exclaimed, "Yes, I will help you." He got up so quickly that he knocked over a chair, almost tripping some poor bystander, and then said, "However, you must do something for me. I cannot, in good conscience, allow you to make another mistake like this. In exchange for my financial aid, you must help me with something." This instantly made Kiba tense, and he responded, "Of course," in spite of Asuma's desperate warning gestures. Kiba's excitement was fueled by the fact that he felt bad about requesting a loan. Earning your wage was important to the Inuzuka clan. It was uncommon for any Inuzuka to go to the level of begging. The level of Kiba's satisfaction with this chance to earn the loan was beyond words. "Very well. You shall train with me and my team for 1 week. If at the end of it you pass my expectations, you shall be free to go. However, if you do not meet my expectations, you will have to go through another week of training. Is that a deal, my youthful charge?" Kiba glanced at the other members of Guy's team and saw how excited Lee was about the possibility of having another team member. He couldn't quite recall the Hyuga's name, but they didn't appear particularly interested. Kiba finally fixed his eyes on the adorable girl, who was grinning slightly as she finished her meal, and made the decision to prove to her that even though he was not perfect, he would stop at nothing to make amends. Hold on a second. Hey Kurenai. Sensei, can I? Kurenai quickly responded, "It's not my call. As long as it doesn't interfere with group training or missions, I can't really tell you what to do." Kurenai foresaw this question. "Woman, you have doomed that kid." Asuma threw his hands in the air, almost exploding. The majority of those in attendance simply attributed the outburst to Asuma's propensity for exaggeration. "Well, I should probably mention that you wouldn't be training with me full-time. It'd be a true shame if I tried to steal you from your own precious teacher. After all, I can't begin to imagine what would happen if someone tried to steal my precious Lee from me." Guy was almost weeping at the idea. "Guy. Sensei." Lee's eyes began to well up with tears as he reveled in Guy's evident love for him. The still crying Guy responded manlily, "Lee," as he stood to embrace his beloved pupil like a father. "Guy. Sensei." Lee mimicked Guy's motions in a manner unique to him. As a shower of love and color imposed an image of a sun setting over a picturesque beach in the diner, the two leapt to their feet and embraced. "Wah. How?" Choji was compelled to pause her meal in order to gaze at the stunning sunset that framed the two men in embrace. He was momentarily distracted by the spectacle, realizing that everyone was staring at the scene, with the exception of the brown-haired girl and the Hyuga. The girl with the brown hair responded, "How what? A feeble. The sunset," was Choji's reply. He must have been fooled by his senses. "What now?" With genuine surprise, Kurenai asked, "You don't see it?" "That thing. Yeah, you just learn to accept it after a while." I've asked. Hell, I've been tempted to try hugging Guy Sensei to see if it works with me, but, just no. Tenten's features abruptly showed recognition with a, "Oh." Hinata's curiosity overcame her fear of her cousin, and she finally said, "S.SOTH. This happens every time they hug." As he separated from his sensei, Lee questioned, "What happens every time we hug?" After noticing the whispers coming from the other people at the table, both of them made the decision to investigate. The sunset, Asuma was in complete shock over what he had just seen. It was unlike anything he had ever seen in his life. This particular sunset had to be the strangest of all the jutsu and magnificent sights he had witnessed. Asuma received little attention from Lee and Guy, who continued to look around the restaurant for the phenomenon that everyone else seemed to have witnessed. Tenten decided to fill them in, since everyone else seemed perplexed by the two green ninjas' reaction. "Don't bother. They don't seem to ever notice it." After a moment, she laughed and added, "I guess it's the..." She stood in a mock pose and exclaimed, "Power of youth." Seated back down, she looked at the shocked faces of the other people in the room and said, "I think it's a genjutsu seal or something myself." Ino, who was almost shell-shocked, replied, "Genjutsu or not, it's beautiful." In response to her teammates' shocked looks, she added, "The sunset, not the hugging." "Well, yeah, I guess it's beautiful or whatever, but it gets old quickly," Tenten sneered. They do that a lot?" Hinata interrupted again. "Oh yeah. Every single time Lee does something even remotely youthful. I don't think he'd ever try that with me or Neji." Tired of being cut off from the conversation, Kiba tried a joke. I sensed jealousy. He wanted to slap himself right away after saying it, saying, "That was dreadful. What's the matter with me? All right, give it another go. But Tenten's voice began to grow louder as she went on. I mean, I get that he's working hard to get over Lee's inability to do jutsu, but come on. Does every second have to be given to Lee? I mean, I work hard? I exist. I don't use jutsu either, but no, it's all about Lee. Oh guy. Sensei, I train constantly just like you said. Her mockery of Lee's tone was swiftly followed by a more gruff guy impersonation. Oh, good job, Lee. You're so much existent than Neji. What about Tenten guy, Sensei? Oh, forget her, Lee. I've got you. You're all the team I need. Tenten, who was breathing heavily as her tirade came to an end, realized that she had been standing. Well, you know WHATGAI. Sensei, I exist. I'm part of the team too. If you'd stop playing favorites every fucking day and help me a little, I'd become better faster. Stop leaving me with that prick of a team. Mate to get belittled every time he deflects my shot. I'm a person too, god. Damn it, guy. Sensei. She sat for a while and then turned to face Kiba as if nothing had happened. So yeah, maybe I'm a little jealous. I guess, she shrugged. The ensuing silence was among the most awkward that anyone at the table had ever encountered. Following Tenten's tirade, the restaurant was filled with noise, and everyone tried to think of something to break the silence. However, Hinata's meek suggestion, while playing with her fingers, was the least expected. Huh. Have you considered, asking him about this? When the restaurant finally opened again, it was almost like a breath of fresh air. I'd love to, except that he thinks that giving Lee everything is more important than giving me and Neji instruction. He just says, alright team, we'll work in pairs today. Every day too. It's always been pairs. Shino said, that doesn't sound too bad, for the first time without hesitation. Oh yeah, it doesn't sound too bad. Except that the pairs are always Neji and me with Guy and Lee off on their own. I mean, I get it that my style isn't exactly the same as Hit, but I need a little bit more than just a moving target to get better. Which is really all Neji is for me at this point. Kiba saw his chance to help this sweet little girl and said, well, how about you ask your parent to help you? My mom helps me out with this stuff a lot. All Tenten could do was smile pitifully and say, I would, but my parents wouldn't be much help. Are they civilians? No, they're dead. I grew up in an orphanage. Well, maybe your sensei just forgets that he had other people to train than just his son. I mean, my dad did that with me when he was supposed to be training my cousin. After my mom and her sister brought it up, he spent time more evenly. Choji had finally finished his meal when he made the decision to voice his opinion. She laughed as she added, yeah, I know, right? They look so similar. Most react that way when they find out. I always knew though. Me and Lee grew up in the same orphanage. Hell, we were best friends back when. Where are our senseis? In response to the shocked expressions of everyone in the room. Lee isn't his son. At last, the gathered genin looked around and saw that all of the Junin appeared to have left the area. They left several moments ago while we were discussing alternates for our friend here. Your sensei left just prior to your outburst. The Hyuga, Neji I believe, left with your sensei. Oh, she turned to Kiba and said, oh, and I'll see you at practice. With a slight smirk, she added, don't make any plans after training. Feeling a little ashamed for not noticing, she put money on the table and said, well, I should probably duck out. Have fun, you guys. Hope I see you again too. As Kiba watched the girl go, he couldn't help but worry about the way she had spoken. However, an irate slap to the back of his head cut short his thoughts as he was thinking, I wonder what she means by. Ino almost yelled, stop staring at her ass, you pervert. For a brief moment, Kiba could only stutter because the accusation was so sudden. He yelled, I wasn't, just, something she said worried me, after he had finally calmed down. Well, father, from what I've heard, father from Neji, he's A versus V. Very dedicated a worker. Yeah, well, his whole tirade's gotten me tired. I guess we should find Asuma. Sensei. I think it's time we leave, don't you, Choji? Shikamaru yawned loudly at this point. What do you, oh, she said, instantly changing her tone after noticing Shikamaru's expression. Yeah, let's go. It's been a blast, guys. Shino coughed a little, and all three of them noticed. Ahem, he said, gesturing to some cash he had placed on the table. You are forgetting something, I believe. Troublesome. All right, let's pay Ino. What about Choji? Shikamaru gestured to some cash protruding from beneath some spices and said, over there. Before adding Choji's money to the pile, Shino added the funds from Ino and Shikamaru. Are we ready to go find Kurenai? Sensei? Shino asked the others as Asuma's genin finally left. Well, I kind of need to wait for Guy to come back, he didn't give me the money yet. Came Kiba's ashamed reply. Besides, I need to find out when training is. I'll catch up with you guys later, okay? Shino only responded, very well. He left, soon followed by Hinata. However, Hinata turned just before she left the booth and said, good luck. For the second time that day, an innocent remark made Kiba wonder if he had been wrong to ask Guy for assistance. By the time Naruto chose to ask a question that had been on his mind, the fire had almost extinguished. He makes a series of hand gestures and then bites his thumb while muttering, Kachiyose no Jutsu. Naruto's excitement quickly turned to annoyance as the smoke cleared, and he said, oh, it's you again. The dog-sized slug responded slowly and sarcastically, oh, it's you again. So nice to know that I showed up to be yelled at. No offense, it's just that I was kind of hoping to see someone new. Well, you have me until your request is approved. What request? Your request to be allowed to count on slugs for assistance, Katsuya. Sama has not decided to help or not at this time. Examining the slug in the dark, Naruto nodded. He had a minor issue with the slug's body in terms of fighting almost immediately. This was a serious weakness that he quickly recognized. How are you supposed to fight? You have no arms or legs. After a brief pause, the slug remarked, very observant. To answer your question, the majority of slugs you will be able to summon will not fight using such barbaric means as crushing or striking. So how would you be able to hurt anyone? You are joking with my correct? Well, how else would you be able to hurt someone without hitting them? I gather that either you are very stupid or very coy. Either way, I am not impressed. Nevertheless, we slugs can be quite useful in combat. Here the slug took a moment to think. The closest word for you humans would be slime. Mostly useful for medical purposes or stealth. Naruto nodded, finding the slug's words to be a little intriguing but not really pertinent to his question, what's your name? If you are going to interrupt my explanations with more questions, I will refuse to answer further ones. Asoi. My name is Asoi. As I was saying, there are several slug coalitions, each of which possesses a different slime, acid, poison, paralysis, and others. I come from a coalition that is known for paralyzing slime. A friend of mine has poison. I suppose the best way to tell you would be that it is similar to human chakra. While you can have multiple types, it is hard to learn and only one has ever mastered all of them. Who is that? With a tone of respect, Osoi uttered, Katsuya, Sama. A sudden, raspy sound came from a nearby source, but it was so faint that Naruto couldn't identify where it was coming from. Well, this all seems nice and such, but I'm not really a poisoner, I'm more of a fair fighter. He immediately became vigilant and looked around him for any potential danger. It finally calmed down. Sorry, I have rarely heard something so naive. So what? Naruto, fighting fair is not what a ninja does. These conflicts that you have and will become entangled in are not academy spars. People will die. You have to use every advantage available to you. Although judging from this conversation, maybe you aren't ready for the finesse a slug summon requires. I would maybe suggest training more with another summon as well as a slug's. After all, your abilities allow for multiple summons. Make use of that. And then Osoi vanished in a cloud of smoke into the unknown. Naruto didn't make a decision until long after Kakashi relieved him of his duty. I'm going to try the next one on the scroll, snakes. I'm going to try snakes. The din of the restaurant's dinner crown was so loud that Kiba's steady thud on the table was barely audible. As he continued to wait for the evergreen sensei, Miyato Guy, the young Inuzuka thought, 4 hours. He waited to show up for 4 hours. Kiba gave his partner a slight distressed expression as he finally rested his head. Do you think he forgot about his buddy? I really can't afford for him to wait all year for this. A rather unremarkable female employee walked up to the shinobi and dog and said, Sir, you can't keep your dog on the table. Really? Why not? You guys haven't made a fuss about it until now. Sorry, I didn't know you were a ninja. I'm new here and I just started and I'm sorry, please don't do any weird ninja things to me, she said, her face going pale as her eyes flicked to the forehead protector Kiba wore. Weird ninja things. Look, you don't have to worry, it was an honest mistake. Besides, we don't really do that here. You from another village? Oh well, yeah, is he your partner? I haven't really seen many animals helping people around here. Kiba couldn't help but say, well, he's my partner for being a shinobi. But there's always room for a beautiful woman like you by my side, without hesitation. The remark, well, I might have to take you up on that one day. Are you two ready to pay yet? It looks like you're done, and instantly made the woman smile. Kiba turned pale and said, we're just cleaning up the scraps. We'll call you over when we're done. Alright, thank you, sir. Kiba turned to face Akamaru as she was leaving, and he was staring at him strangely. What? Akamaru kept staring and gave a small growl. The one I just met? Tenten? Akamaru let out a curious whine this time. Akamaru, I just met her. I'm not really tied down yet. Besides, it was just a little harmless flirting. Just one line, in fact. No harm in that, right? The little dog growled a little more aggressively. There was a trace of disappointment in this one. Kiba was interrupted by the sound of a bag of coins jingling on the table. Yeah, well, Tenten won't know, okay. It was one time. Don't judge. Kiba was unable to see what would happen next because he was staring at the coins, but the shout, Dynamiku Entori, was loud enough to alert him to the impending attack and warn him to duck. He heard a crash and the cry, my stand, shortly after. Kiba noticed a green, covered arm protruding from the glistening remnants of a jewelry stand as she looked out the window. When the pile started to shift, revealing Lee, Kiba cried out, the hell? I am sorry, my new team mate, but I had to make sure you were prepared for Guy Sensei's training. Kiba asked out loud, still incredulous, what? It wouldn't do at all if you were not prepared for the training. I am happy to announce that you have passed the first of the 3 tests. What about my stand? The jewelry salesman's frantic voice cried. I apologize. Please take this in order to make up for the damage to the stall. Also, I believe that no jewelry was harmed. There is also a large amount to make up for the lost profits for the day. I hope this is sufficient. Lee bowed deeply and handed the man enough money to cover the damages, missing the young Inuzuka's frustrated expression. How can you afford that? Personal projects. I am finishing as many missions as possible as quickly as possible. My speed, however, pales in comparison to Guy Sensei's, Lee said, looking a little uneasy, when I am not training or working on. All right. However, why did you assault me? It was only an experiment. You attacked me, then? No, I looked to see if you could avoid it. We wouldn't be having this conversation right now if I were attacking you, Lee said with a wink and a thumbs up, jumping towards the window so that he could speak to Kiba without shouting. However, if one were to ask Kiba, the green youth's voice remained completely unchanged in volume. Kiba was worried about this development, saying, I still can't believe the guy wanted you to attack me for a test. He seemed odd, but not so violent. Well, actually, that was my idea, Guy Sensei had just shown me an amazing move, was Lee's sheepish response. The Dynamiku Entori is its name. Lee ran in place and gave an invisible enemy a jump kick to demonstrate the move. But first you must divert their attention with something, Lee said. Usually some kind of kunai, but I thought cash would do just as well. You were sadly far too smart to fall for that kind of a ploy. That's actually pretty clever. Maybe he's more brilliant than I thought. You had doubts about Guy Sensei? Lee found the idea disgusting, but he thought it would be unwise to bring it up to his new teammate. Very well, Kiba. I'll take you to the second test Guy Sensei has set up. This way, it's over. What's this one? A basic course of instruction. It shouldn't be too difficult because my team runs it at least twice a day. It's unbelievable that we decided on this. We might be killed. As soon as Sakura put down her pack, her thoughts began to flow, and Kakashi, who had considered this choice ever since Naruto persuaded him to go on, could actually understand where she was coming from. Little girl, you shouldn't have joined the ninja program if you didn't want to face danger, was Tezuna's response. Kakashi was growing to like this man despite his terrible lie. However, only half of the group was fortunate enough to receive this treatment after he had come clean about his deceit. Kakashi was not the only one who noticed this, though, because Naruto said, why are you suddenly being so kind to Sasuke, Teme and Kakashi Sensei? As he looked up from his familial scroll. Because they performed their duties and protected me, in contrast to you 2 other runts. After a brief pause, Tezuna asked in a sincere interest, hell, all you did was cut yourself. Are you a cutter? I've heard about those kinds. You should quit because that's probably not healthy. It might allow you to get a little taller. I hate to remind you Tezuna-san, but it was only because of Naruto that we are still on this mission, Kakashi said, deciding that this was a good time to remind Tezuna of his debt. Therefore, when we stop, it is up to him. Therefore, it might be wise to avoid upsetting him too much. Whether it was the content of the message or the fact that he was being treated like a child, Kakashi couldn't tell, but Tezuna flinched as if Kakashi had hit him. Kakashi looked at Naruto and saw that the young man was gazing into the depths of the nearby forest. He kind of enjoyed that look, which made him think of Obito, who was driven and optimistic. Kakashi Sensei, hello. The cyclopic ninja snapped out of his reverie and said, Yes, Naruto? Would you mind giving me a little time to train? Well, I guess so. Kakashi, who had also spent a considerable amount of time with his new bloodline, could understand Naruto's eagerness. Just stay within shouting distance. Although the circumstances were different, it still made sense. Why? That was we'll know how good our opponents are. What are you saying? When Sakura finally had enough of ruminating in silence, she responded, he's just going to go train. Easy, we'll know they're talented if we hear them murder him. Everyone in the room appeared surprised by Kakashi's demeanor, and his eye formed what appeared to be a smile. Observing the strange expressions, Kakashi laughed a little and said, I was only kidding. He couldn't help but think, sort of, as he saw the understanding expressions on their faces. He looked at his other companions and saw that Akamaru had already fainted, but it was Lee who had shocked him the most. Kiba's legs felt like they were broken, and he was genuinely shocked that he was still able to stand. In fact, he was certain that standing was the only thing keeping him conscious. Lee, who was standing completely upright and taking brief notes on Kiba's injuries and physical condition, had a small notebook in which he was making brief notes that Kiba was certain were unfavorable. Yet, after a few minutes of observation, Lee grinned and exclaimed, Congratulations! You performed far better than I did when I took the course for the first time. Actually, I believe you were very close to Neji. Kiba, who was wheezing, couldn't help but inquire, that was the training course? Twice I nearly died. Yes. When you dove to shield Akamaru from the swinging logs, it was at its most impressionable. So young, he said, tears streaming from his eyes as he dove to protect a loved one. Finally getting his second wind, Kiba tried standing up, but he quickly regretted as his body screamed in protest. So, we're almost done? He asked. Oh yes. Only one more test to complete. We'll rest here though first. Once you're ready we can go. Thanks. Kiba then fell, almost hitting Akamaru, and he went into oblivion with his loyal friend. Kiba became aware that his surroundings had changed and slowly woke up. He lived in a darkened dojo with a 15-meter square sparring mat in the middle, rather than a clearing in the forest. Sweat and the smell of freshly cut wood filled the entire dojo. He pushed himself to his knees and wondered for a moment where Lee had fled to. The response to one question was, "Ah, you are awake. I welcome you to my personal project, my dojo." You have a dojo? Kiba inquired, clearing his head of fatigue. Already, things were shifting, and he suspected he knew where this was headed. Oh yes. I have kept it a secret from everyone, even Guy Sensei, so that I may start testing my skills in fights that are off the record. You may be wondering why I decided to show it to you first. Actually I am. I could have sworn that your sensei would know by now. Well, the reason I have allowed you to see it is, and the third test I want you to proctor, Lee, is one of his actual combat abilities. Tracking and endurance are one thing, but I need to know where he stands on actual combat. Guy smiled magnificently at me. I immediately made a self-promise to improve my own dental routine so that I could match his flawless teeth. However, that wasn't the part that reminded me of this location. I was going to spar with you next to our training course, but Guy Sensei's next statement made me realize how fortunate we are. Oh, if only there was a place where two genin could practice in a no-holds-barred fight off the record where no one would know to look for them. Perhaps if one of us had built a secret dojo somewhere. Oh well, since there is no such place, to my knowledge, that exists, I suppose that you'll just have to think of something else. I believe in you, Lee. The words came to me as naturally as the realization that he recognized my potential. I was overcome with happiness. I was unable to stop myself. Guy Sensei. In response, he extended his arms to embrace all of our youth combined. Lee. And I shouted. Kiba replied, I think I got it, so you brought me here to test my fighting skills? Yes. It seems a bit odd that he worded it like that. Are you sure that he isn't aware of this place? Of course. Even my sensei's masterful perception would be fooled by how well I have hidden it. So how did you find this place anyway? I built it in my spare time. It was astounding how much Lee devoted himself to a hobby. Kiba believed that Lee had every right to appear proud of the construction. Despite its rather simple appearance, the dojo was a true masterpiece. Wow, that's actually really impressive. I am glad you think so. I am honored for you to be the first person to see my dojo since its beginnings. Now shall we begin? Hey. Of course. Get ready to get destroyed. As the two young people were saying, that is the spirit. Remember not to hold anything back. On the count of 3. 1, 2, th. A knock on the door split them up. Although he whispered to Kiba, how could anyone possibly find this place? I hid it deep within the forest. He yelled, "Oh, please come in." Kiba opened the door and was not totally surprised to see Guy come in. He was taken aback by what Guy was wearing. In addition to his usual green outfit, he had on a fake purple goatee, dark red spike hair that resembled his own, and big dark sunglasses that covered his eyes. "Oh ho, my wise friends. What a fine and wise dojo you have built." Guy's voice was barely disguised by a tiny lisp added to any word. "I happened to be traveling by this area and found this fine and wise establishment, which I have never seen before, and decided that I might partake in a friendly battle with someone who possibly wears a coat." "Oh ho. How wise of me. There appears to be one here right now. Perhaps I could spar with you, young, but wise, man." Kiba inquired. "Guy. Sensei, what's with the odd get up?" Unsure if this was just another one of Guy's peculiarities. The stranger did not panic, but appeared surprised to be called by that name. "Why would you call him Guy? Sensei. He clearly lacks the youthful hair of my beloved sensei." "No offense," Lee asked Kiba, his strange looks conveying unbound confusion. "No offense intended. The bowl cut is undoubtedly the most trendy hairstyle," exclaimed the stranger. Kiba responded, he didn't mention that it was a bowl cut. He was obviously uncomfortable with what he was saying, but he continued with much more vigor into the next sentence. "I would like to participate in a challenge of physical prowess. Perhaps in an off-the-record match within this dojo? I simply assumed that such a wise young man as him would emulate such a youthful sensei as Guy, you said? That is a most weird name where I come from. To answer your question, my name is Iga. Otime, anyway. Yosh. Otime Iga. I shall allow you to challenge my good friend Kiba. This is an off-the-record dojo made specifically for physical challenges and, luckily for your admittedly specific tastes, Kiba does indeed wear a coat." "Oh, wise years abound. Such luck I have." Guy's broad smile gave Kiba the impression that he was congratulating himself. Kiba had to ask, "You seriously don't see it? You're kidding, right?" Lee couldn't possibly be serious. "Of course I see it, Kiba. The bright future of my dojo. It is blinding in its youthful glory." Kiba received all the answers he would ever require from Lee's eyes, which were practically dancing stars. Kiba responded with a sigh, "Whatever, I should have just worked my dead off with the restaurant." The rules were as follows. "All right, here are the rules. Only taijutsu may be used, no groin attacks. Nothing lethal. Unfortunately, Kiba, there are no animals allowed to fight alongside a contender. When I call the end of the fight, it's over or else I'll step in." Kiba saw that Lee appeared very eager for the fight to go too far and necessitate his intervention. These guys are really strange. Whatever the case, they must be worth the trouble. I find it only fair to warn you that I am a powerful and wise opponent. So please hold nothing at all back, my wise friend, Iga roared. "I wouldn't dream of it, Iga." Kiba shot back, determined not to let this jester win. He should be easy to defeat because he isn't taking it seriously. As he positioned himself to referee, Lee yelled, "Okay, let's start on my count. 3, 2, 1, fight." The instant Lee uttered the word, "fight," Iga charged Kiba. Kiba couldn't stop the kick that was meant for his arm because he was so taken aback by how quickly the attack came. After being flung off his feet, he barely had time to notice that Iga was about to kick him again, knocking Kiba 2 meters to the left. How did he do that? He asked himself as he slid to a stop. How is his speed possible? I hardly noticed it at all. No, the entire situation is a lucky fluke. He stood up slowly and realized why he could stand without any problems. Iga was acting. "Not many can withstand my most exquisite kicks," Iga exclaimed. "You must be very well trained, Akib, was it?" Kiba lunged at Iga without even bothering to answer the boast, and Iga not only did not dodge but also did not even break his pose. Kiba was shocked to see that Iga didn't even flinch when they collided. Good. But not good enough. Iga threw Kiba almost out of the arena with a quick upper body motion. The idea that such an odd person could be so powerful sent a shockwave through Kiba. Because of his training with Kurenai, he was aware of the power of a Junin, but Guy seemed to elevate it to a new plane. He didn't even make a single movement. He almost seems to be entirely composed of muscle. He stood up once more to try to attack Iga after forcing himself to calm down. He attempted a flying tack to Iga's knees this time, aiming lower. He discovered the folly of this strategy too late, as Iga's foot quickly made contact with his shoulder, causing an explosion of pain and sending the young man flying back toward the edge of the arena. Hinata turned to Shino and said, I don't know, Hear that guy? Sensei is a rough teacher. He say. Seems to mean we. Well, but gets carried away AC, according to Nay. Neji. I'm sure Kiba will be fine. He is not one to give up easily, Shino said quietly. As she left, she went back to her training post, feeling anxious. Suppose you're right, AF. After all, what's the worst that Circa could happen? She asked herself. Guy was initially concerned when Kiba almost saw through his brilliant disguise, which had even fooled his eternally hip rival, Kakashi, but he was instantly reassured of its charms when his own pupil was unable to identify him. I am surprised you have lasted this long, my most wise friend. 15 minutes is a long time to try. He is, in fact, extremely hot-blooded. He keeps trying in spite of his repeated failures. I have to give myself kudos for locating such a passionate student. He's almost as amazing as my Lee. He must now be vanquished in order to start ascending to even greater levels of youth. A struggling Kiba was thinking quite differently on the other side of the arena. He's just too strong for me to win. However, he will not escape this situation unscathed. He could not help but respect Guy's power despite his growing rage. I'll show him to treat me as a joke. Kiba grinned as a plan took shape in his mind and he was finally able to stand up. Perhaps the pain was telling him, but he had the hope that it might work. I am very impressed by your tenaciousness. Too many people would have given up at this point. I'm sure whoever will be training you will be most impressed. You have potential, but you just need to work on your taijutsu limits, not to mention your... Iga said, perplexed by the smile, as he watched the kunai Kiba toss his general direction, missing it by a few centimeters. As he casually considered it, he couldn't help but wonder if Tenten could teach him proper form. He went on with his assessment, saying, well, it looks like you'd need to work on accuracy first. He turned back to Kiba and continued, saying, I'm sure you'll improve. Dane Imiku Entorii. Guy's time seemed to slow down because he only had time for one thought. Where did he learn that? Although the disguised Junin stayed upright, Kiba felt Guy lose his balance due to the force of the blow and his shock, which caused him to be knocked out of the arena. Well done. Kiba wins. You are the most talented Kiba. It might have been the pain or exhaustion, but Kiba actually welcomed it since it allowed him to stand without using up energy. Lee shouted about Kiba's victory's genius for a few moments while he gave him a bone-crushing hug. Oh yes, I made the right choice to try to get him to join my training program. He will do well in it. Guy cleared his throat and interrupted the two youths' rather one-sided conversation, telling them, you should probably go speak to this guy. Sensei. Of yours pretty soon. Guy watched from just outside the arena as his favorite student assured Kiba that they would need to spar one day and that they would need eternal gratitude for allowing Lee's dojo to witness such a youthful first match. The last thing he said before leaving was, I bet he's a most youthful man, rubbing the area of his face where Kiba's footprint was still visible. If only I had the good fortune to train under a man who was so young, attractive, committed, and passionate. After reading the entire section on snakes, Naruto set aside his family scroll to reflect on what he had read. So, they're much better for combat It sounds like a summons I could use. Does anything else seem significant? Naruto ran through a few dry runs of the hand seals before pumping chakra into the scroll after giving it one last glance and concluding he knew everything he needed. Orochimaru. SSSAMA. A voice asked through the smoke plume. Naruto chuckled and said, just like the slug in Tsunami. Afraid not, he replied. My name is Naruto, and I will be the next Hokage. The irate rustling seemed to suggest that it might not be a good idea to brag right away. After the smoke cleared, Naruto was able to see his potential attacker more clearly. The snake was sitting in its coiled position, almost up to his chest, its gray body slowly uncoiling as it drew closer to Naruto, its lone surviving eye now fixed on Naruto in what could only be described as a sneer. I don't have time for your stupidity, fool. Orochimaru. SSSAMA. Where are you? Over the years, he has become foolish. The idiot has decided that he can just hand the scroll to any idiot who asks for it. Well, I don't. Naruto had to start stepping back to keep the snake from getting too close after its slow slithering changed from an irritated to a frustrated one. Listen here, child. Dealing with you is not why I am here. Right now, Orochimaru. SSSAMA is the only one with permission to summon us. Manda will be interested in learning about this. You inform Orochimaru. Baka that he must respond to this. The snake finally halts his progress and gives Naruto one final glare before vanishing in a cloud of smoke. I didn't help Obito, but I can at least try to help Naruto, Kakashi thought, sighing as he watched Naruto slouched along during their journey with a somewhat perplexed expression on his own face. Naruto. Although he felt honor bound because of the blonde's resemblance to Obito, It didn't make the prospect of social interaction any more alluring. What? Naruto snapped to attention and turned to face his sensei. Naruto was taken aback for two reasons. First, he had never been a social butterfly, and second, even if he were, he would feel more connected to Sasuke than to himself. Something's bothering you. Kakashi tried hard to avoid sounding like an observational jerk because he had a bit of an ego when it came to observation from years of accurately expressing people's feelings. Well, yeah. Naruto was taken aback once more because, aside from Hinata on a few occasions when he was feeling particularly down, no one ever discussed his feelings with him. He always had the impression that she knew more than she disclosed, and to be completely honest, he was already beginning to miss his friend. Would you mind telling me about it? To Kakashi's dismay, the awkwardness didn't go away as he had hoped. Rather, it got worse every time he tried to strike up a conversation. Not at all. It's just that I wanted to use snakes more and summoning them sort of worked, but they were much meaner than slugs. You know, they seem more useful. Well, you can't expect every summon to be nice, Kakashi said, feeling the awkwardness instantly go away. Tactics, now this is more my style. Furthermore, snakes aren't exactly known for being amiable. Yeah, I am aware. I suppose all I wanted was for them to be a bit more tolerant. You know, I want something stronger than slugs. Well, Naruto slugs have a lot of power. Actually, I know a woman who used a single slug to defeat an entire army. According to what I've been told, they're a little more difficult to figure out. At this point, Sasuke, who had been listening in, couldn't help but make a scathing remark. Well, the Dobi would need a more direct summons. He's not intelligent enough, in my opinion, to try strategies. Stop talking, Teme. If necessary, I can be tactful. Sasuke responded sarcastically, I'm sure you could. Before Naruto could respond, his sensei pushed him into the ground and said, everyone, get down. When Naruto looked up, he saw a big blade fly through the air where Tezuna's neck had been. When he heard it thud into a nearby tree, he turned to see where the noise was coming from and saw a man who was proportionately tall standing on the big sword. Okay. Sharingan Kakashi, tell me how you found out I was here. The voice seemed sincerely interested in the response. There is nothing covering the enormous sword you carry on your back. The reflected sunlight caught my attention. Everything went as planned, the man said, smirking. I suppose years of only dealing with armed civilians have worn down my abilities a bit. I'm feeling giving, even though I've always wanted to fight you. What about a trade? Let me guess, Kakashi said, narrowing his visible eye, our lives in exchange for Tezuna? Zabuza, is that the deal you're referring to? That would be one of my offers, Zabuza said, crouching on the handle of his sword to get a better view of the group. You exploit my short attention span, which is the other. Counting money can sometimes really divert me. I might become too preoccupied to hurt anyone if someone were to, say, fall to the ground over there. Out of all the reactions Naruto anticipated, the one that came to pass was the one he knew would never occur. For a few seconds, Kakashi burst out laughing. When he finally stopped, he replied, I've heard this one before. So did the 3 headless corpses you left after the last time you used this trick. The survivor told quite a story. Lull us into a false sense of security, and then strike from the shadows, as is your style. Naruto got up slowly and started to walk in Zabuza's direction, but Kakashi's hand stopped him. This man is on a whole different level than the Demon Brothers. Trust me, it's best for you not to interfere. I really is willing to walk away from this too, Zabuza sighed. He said, very well. Go ahead and draw out your secret weapon. I don't want this fight to be anything less than brutal. He quickly leapt down to face Kakashi and drew his sword from the tree. No one ever trusts me, he said, glaring down at Kakashi. It's obviously not too much of a secret. As my name implies, Kakashi said with a small laugh, pulling his headband up to show his Sharingan eye. Everyone seems to know I have it. What's happening? Sakura's mind was racing as she watched the battle play out. The old man first, then Sensei. How strong are these two ancient bags? They had never acted so strong. What was the potential power of this Zabuza? For a brief moment, she considered the possibility that he might be able to defeat Sasuke. No. I'm positive that Sasuke is unmatched, but what if he kills Kakashi, Sensei? Then we're screwed. I need to help. No, I'll just get in the way. She proceeded to think, the mission objective is to protect Tezuna. Protect Tezuna at all costs, even if it means defending Sasuke. However, that won't be required. Right now, they don't need my assistance. She muttered softly, just protect Tezuna. We'll be fine. Sasuke's thoughts were very different as he watched the battle. The Sharingan, however, it is only available to a select few members of the Uchiha clan. Could he be a Uchiha? No, that man wiped them all out. Maybe he is that man in disguise. He drew a kunai, ready to finally exact his revenge, as a blind rage began to consume him. Sasuke was jolted out of his rage by Kakashi's voice. "Don't worry, Sasuke, I'll protect you guys even if it kills me. Even if he is that man in disguise, I have a greater threat at the moment, so now is not the time. Zabuza initially. I'll then determine whether or not he is that man." It's finished. As Zabuza emerged from their mist, a shouting voice jolted both genin out of their inner monologues. "For you." Naruto attempted to punch the big rogue ninja, but the bigger man easily blocked his blow and sent him flying. He attempted to right himself for a landing, which would have been successful if he hadn't struck the tree. After finishing his task with the blonde runt, Zabuza turned back to the elderly man and said, "Now die." He was annoyed to discover that Kakashi had once again stopped him from finishing his task, so he swung his weapon in a horizontal sweep towards the man's middle. "You seem to be losing your touch, Zabuza. Perhaps you've softened?" Trying to prevent the big sword from cleaving through his kunai and, more significantly, himself, Kakashi made fun of the situation. When the fog began to rise, Naruto was having trouble staying conscious. His head, back, and entire body hurt. The sounds of battle were far away. Were they nearby? No, there was splashing water. He was having trouble concentrating on anything. There was more splashing. There was a slight nudge. There was pain where the other had touched him. "Are you trying to fight him?" After a brief silence, "How foolish." Naruto laughed as the pain rushed through him once more. Maybe, a little rustle that sounded like something moving from land to water. Then there was silence once more, and Naruto was relieved that it didn't hurt. With a slight smirk, Zabuza turned to face the captured Junin. "Are you attempting to get away from me by going out onto the water? It surprises me that you tried that stupidly. You can't get away from my what-ah." His leg felt like it was pumping something into him, and he tried to shake it loose, but it was impossible. Reaching down, the pressure immediately went away, and he turned back to Kakashi, grateful, only to be hit in the face. The wound on his leg cried out for help, and Zabuza ducked into the fog to check the situation. "Snakebite. Damn it. This isn't good. It was probably poisonous. I can't afford to screw around for long," he said, clearing the fog enough to examine his wound as he stepped onto land. Naruto looked up when he heard some footsteps close by. The pain had finally subsided enough for him to see what was going on, and he saw Zabuza examining his leg. Happy to get another chance at the bastard, Naruto smiled and made his favorite hand gesture. "Kage doesn't have jutsu." Zabuza turned around when he heard a voice behind him. About 20 clones were standing in a close-knit group, all of them smiling and eager. "Wow, what a great youngster. But before I was even 13, I had already killed more Junin than that. Think twice if you believe that a snakebite and a few clones will defeat the demon of the mist." Zabuza threw his sword again after taking careful aim. Naruto, who was not a coward but also not a complete moron, was grateful that he had fled back to his group as he watched his entire gang destroyed by the sword throw. He knew that Zabuza would destroy him on his own, and all he had hoped was that his clones would have diverted his attention for a longer period of time. Two things made Tazuna happy to see the kid again. First, it was another bodyguard. Second, he had grown a little attached to the brat and didn't want to watch him battle that demon. When the madman's blade sailed past Tazuna's face and slightly cut his ear, his eyes widened and he fell into a pool of his own urine, unable to stand. As he dashes for his sword, Zabuza thinks for a moment about how much time he has left. "I really need to hurry. I'm getting too sloppy." Aim down and to the left. He sees a demon shuriken approaching him, and he jumps over it carelessly, watching as it embeds itself in a tree and says, "Keep trying, kids." The next thing to sail toward him is a kunai, which he avoids even more easily than the shuriken. Shuriken and petty kunai cannot stop me. He decided that having a second weapon would make it easier to kill the bridge builder and flee, so he grabbed his sword. He reached for the kunai, but it turned to smoke, blinding him. What was all that was on his mind before a fist struck his jaw? He felt his blade slash through the tree in the body, which turned to smoke, as he swung blindly. With a cry of savage fury, he grabbed the demon shuriken. He felt a foot to his torso and was blinded by a second puff of smoke. He roared again, punching the arrogant clone into non-existence. "I won't let a bunch of little bastards make a fool of me. Everyone dies. I don't care if the bridge builder dies." He turned to face Naruto, and as he struggled to control his anger and the venom in his veins, The fog began to lighten even more. You, he said, pointing to Naruto, you are the target, prepare. Kakashi expertly kicked Zabuza again, this time in the back. Forget about me? Zabuza's form was swiftly replaced by a log. Everyone turned to face the angry demon when they heard a loud splash on the water. No more screwing around, he exclaimed, laughing loudly. I'll take you all out at once, he said, rushing through hand seals as quickly as he could. Unwilling to stare the gift horse in the mouth, Kakashi used his past knowledge to finish the technique first, Daibakufu no Jutsu. He hurried to the water, copying every signal Zabuza used. But why is he going through the signs so slowly? Kakashi asked, realizing that he had seen this jutsu before. The wall of water engulfed Zabuza, and his eyes grew wide. He was only dimly conscious of the pain as he crashed into the tree. Before his eyes, the entire world was swimming. I guess this is it, where's Ha? His world went dark in an instant. As the green-clad figure descended from a nearby tree, Naruto's questions erupted as it approached Zabuza's body. Who the hell do you think you are? We had him. Thank you for weakening him for me, the figure said after examining the protruding needles. For months, I have been following Momochi-san. Now I have to take him away. Once more, thank you. The figure then seized the body and vanished. Sakura broke the silence by asking, why were they in such a hurry, sensei? The group all looked at the location where the figure had just vanished for a few moments before speaking. The next thing Naruto said was, and what was up with the mask? To save his remaining energy, Kakashi put on a new headband. They were a hunter ninja. They find renegade ninjas and demolish the corpse. This is to prevent the enemy ninja from discovering the body's secrets. The things you can learn from a body might surprise you. Things like the village's medicine. The name of their first date. When Kakashi could take it no more, he began to collapse. I knew a guy, a true miracle worker. He could tell if a corpse used to be ticklish. At least Kakashi was kept from landing on his face when Naruto reached out to steady him, but he could only reach his arm. Kakashi was glad he hadn't hit his nose on the ground, but he was concerned about a new form he had just seen approaching the group. Naruto, a friend of yours? Oh no, it's you. Yes, I had called upon that earlier in. Slow down. All of this is complete nonsense, but Lord Manda needs an audience. Haku examined the large bite wound, almost fumbling her tools to the ground. Zabuza's body was starting to lose its flow of blood. Muttering, that's not good. She was aware that letting the blood run out was the simplest way to remove the poison. Zabuza's hand stopped her as she attempted to reopen the wound. I'll do it. Haku knocked Zabuza's hand away for the first time outside of a training session. Haku returned to her work after saying, unless of course you are talking to that tree. You're in no condition. You can barely see straight. Although Zabuza was able to maintain an angry expression, she let Haku finish her work without interference. He had a thought while gazing into the trees. Why did you go after me? Why not kill the kids and the old man? Because you almost died, Momochi-san. I live only to serve you. If you were killed, Haku replied worriedly, shaking her head to clear her mind. If that happened, what would I do? She asked, pausing briefly before continuing. Besides, I saw the snake. It was a variety that lives nearby, so I knew I could save you if I slowed your heart beat. She worked diligently in silence for a few moments before letting out a sigh of relief. That should do it. Now we just need to put you to bed, rest and a few medicinal herbs and you should be fine. In a harsh, accusing, and disappointed tone, Zabuza said, that doesn't explain why you let them live. Zabuza wondered what to say and Haku lifted her. You know I don't like killing. You never gave me orders to kill. Your exact words were to act as backup in whatever way I saw fit. So I saved you. As for why I aimed for the neck, I knew that if I didn't they may not have believed you were dead and might have taken matters into their own hands. You know what they say about Sharingan Kakashi's abilities of observation. Plus I may not have been able to save you if we had waited too much longer. A battle with him would have put your life in more danger. I can't afford to lose you, Momochi-san. Zabuza's body tensed in agony as he continued, breathing more slowly and raggedly. Whatever, next time, he said. Next time he won't live. I'll show all of those bastards what happens when you mess with the devil. The Konoha ninja were unable to look away from the enormous snake in front of them. Look, I just about got killed. I don't want to deal with Manda or whoever right now, okay? Naruto was interrupted, as was to be expected, when the snake knocked Kakashi out of his grasp and began to coil around. The snake began to constrict almost before Naruto could understand what was happening. Perhaps I was as unclear, foolish boy. When Lord Manda requests an audience, you do not turn him down. But perhaps this misunderstanding is all my fault, Maybe I misheard what USS said? Perhaps you would like to repeat yourself SSSOS to avoid an unfortunate accident. Naruto grunted through the pain. I said that even though I'm tired, I'd like nothing more than to talk to Lord Manda. The snake's pressure was released almost immediately after he finished speaking. Kakashi was struggling to even move to check Naruto for injuries when Naruto collapsed to the ground, gasping for air. Now foolish human SSS may take your SS sensei and continue on your way. Either your friend will catch up or he won't. Either way, this won't take long. Now, the large snake said, turning to face the other terrified humans. Sakura gave the snake one last terrified look before attempting to lift her sensei, but Tazuna interrupted her. Sakura couldn't help but look back at Naruto and the snake as they left. Tazuna looked at Kakashi, who was barely conscious, and said, "Don't worry, little girl. That kid should be fine. Obviously the snake doesn't want him dead. Probably just a contractual talk or something. I have them all the time. They're nothing to worry about. Think you'll be able to handle everything, Sasuke?" Tazuna asked. "I am a Uchiha. I can handle anything that comes our way." "Yeah. Sasuke-kun can do it." "Alright." As his traveling companions vanished into the distance, Naruto watched. "So what do I have to do to talk to Manda?" Naruto said, glancing over at his seemingly irate summon. "They shouldn't get too far away. I will assist you with a summoning jutsu. Just follow my lead. He will take my place in this plane of existence." Before determining that he was ready, the snake led him through the signs multiple times and said, "Okay." Naruto yelled, "Shinsei Kachiyose no Jutsu," during the last run. He thought, that's an odd incantation, just before the snake left that plane of existence. The huge plume of smoke that engulfed the entire clearing almost choked Naruto. He sensed a dark presence even behind the cloud. All he could see when the smoke cleared was a huge wall of purple scales with a wide black band extending over the 20-foot wall. Fuck it. It was a trap. What a bitch of a son. I'll rip him to pieces as soon as I get my hands on him. He was searching the 50-foot clearing for a way out when he was startled to see a big, almost triangular cover begin to form over the wall. "They're enclosing me now." When the cover rotated downward to reveal a large snake's head, the panic swiftly gave way to fear. Naruto collapsed to his knees, gazing up at the giant that surrounded him. Snuh. He gradually realized that the wall was actually a huge snake. The creature said without opening its mouth, "I am glad to see that Orochimaru taught you manners. You may rise." But Naruto was aware that it wasn't talking to him. Naruto eventually started to recover from the shock by slowly obeying the creature. "I do not sense Orochimaru, however. In fact, you do not seem familiar at all. Just who are you?" "I'm," hesitating a moment before his courage returned with full force, "I'm Uzumaki Naruto. I'm gonna be the Hokage." The snake's head fell and smashed a hole right in front of Naruto, knocking him off his feet before he could say anything more. The creature's rage was evident in its voice as it said, "Insolent welt. I asked you very specifically who you are. Not who you think you'll become. Answer me with only the truth." This made the young blonde even more afraid. "I am Uzumaki Naruto." The big snake cut off the sentence, "I already knew that." Naruto went on, suppressing a wave of frustration, "I am currently a genin of Konohagakaru." The snake moved again. It carefully positioned itself to get the best possible look at Naruto, but this was a much kinder movement. Every breath it took carried the stench of dead flesh. "Konohagakaru? Do you know of Orochimaru?" Naruto responded sarcastically, "I'm sorry, do you want me to answer your first question or are you gonna keep stopping me? 'Cause at this rate we won't get anywhere now, will we?" Despite the snake's close proximity. This outburst did not seem to disturb the snake, who responded, "You have a point. My time is valuable, continue." With an inward sigh, Naruto acknowledged how fortunate he had been that his outburst had not infuriated the big snake. "Well, the only other thing that's important is that I plan on becoming the Hokage." When the snake's voice resurfaced, it was no longer irate and had a tone that was almost purring, suggesting that this last one pleased it. Uncoiling from around Naruto's position, Manda searched the clearing visually, smelling blood everywhere. A minion with ambition. So few seek great things in this life. Yes, you could certainly go places with my help. Just treat my kind well and you can have a powerful ally at your disposal. I, Lord Manda, approve of your signing of our contract. I accept your alliance proposal. Now, as for payment, where is my sacrifice? Never mind, I smell the blood. I love a good search. The sacrifice you brought me fought hard, didn't he? His blood is everywhere, but he was subdued in the water. Another scent? For one so young to have captured not one but two, three sacrifices at your age? Your scent is everywhere too. I am impressed. You seem to have done the work of 20. One only bled at this location however, but, Manda's excitement dropped and resulted in a bit of rage. One went a different direction than the other two. You allowed one to escape? It was one of the more injured ones too. But the other two escaped as well? I can smell their movement from here. Bah. What sacrifices? Was a question that had been bothering Naruto for a while, and he thought this was a good time to ask it. What sacrifice? Obviously the sacrifice that will allow you to summon my brethren in battle. You do not get something for nothing, minion. Now come we. What scroll? What scroll? I will not allow this. I warn you only once, I do not allow those who break deals to live. So stop your feigned ignorance before I become angry. Sounded from Manda's throat as his tail swung forward to destroy a large tree close to Naruto. Naruto halted his speech as he had to avoid Manda's tail, which had impaled the ground he was standing on. I don't know what. Manda gave Naruto a nearly approving glance. The big snake swung to crush Naruto with the underside of his chin a split second later. I need to get out of here, Naruto said, barely avoiding the attack this time. This is something I can't kill. He turned to run and ran as fast as he could, but he was stopped by a large, scaly wall. Where are you going, little rat? We're just starting to have fun. No need to run and get more food is there. Do not worry. Your companions did nothing to offend me. They will be fine. Now, we have unfinished business, Manda purred at Naruto, lowering his face to look at him more closely and slowly to enjoy the fear on his prey's face. Manda's tongue flicked again, but this time it struck Naruto, knocking him into the area of his body that was blocking his escape. Now stand prey. Make this interesting. As fast as he could, Naruto clambered to his feet, just barely avoiding Manda's purposefully slow tail swipe. The vermin's kunai were useless against Lord Manda's steel. Like scales, which said, you should not have signed the scroll if you weren't going to fulfill your obligations. False clones were useless, and as Manda continued to play tricks on his prey, he could not help but taunt him, asking, little rat, why did you not just bring the sacrifice? Despite the little vermin's protest, Manda went on, you could have been a valuable servant. A simple fix. Until one remains. Encircle them and sweep them with your tongue. Pinning the remaining creature with his tongue, Manda exclaimed, you show less talent than Itaagh, quickly removing his tongue from the sharp pain. He looked at a tiny knife sticking out of it. I grow tired of this easy chase. Ha! A rat with some bite. This is more like it. I don't know what scroll you keep talking about. The one I have doesn't say anything about sacrifices, it's not my fault. Something inside Manda snapped at this. No more teasing. He threw the lying rat into the air with a full speed tail swing, then slammed it down with enough force to shatter a bone. If there is one thing I cannot stand, little rat, it is a weasel. Stop feigning ignorance, he said, pressing harder as he moved closer to examine the injured creature and was happy to see that he was still alive. Just admit your wrongdoing. Nothing can save you now, but I am not without mercy. Stop trying to deceive me. You will die much faster. The vermin's nerve was, I don't know what you're talking about, denying guilt until the very end. Very well. Your soul will follow your signature shortly after, and I hope you enjoy dissolving. You will pass away gradually then, but not before witnessing the blemish you left on my perfect contract erased. He found what he was looking for by wriggling his tongue around in his mouth, and then he took the scroll out of a corner of his mouth and put it right next to the wriggling rodent. Uzumaki Naruto. The latest signer. Manda unfolded the scroll and looked for the name. This is it, isn't it? 2 searches of the entire list yielded no mention of his current captive. Where is it? It should be directly after Kabuto. Where is it? Did you sign at the front? He exclaimed. Manda's voice growled. Where is it? Where is your signature? What did you do? As the pressure increased, the prey coughed up a little blood and had the audacity to laugh. I already told you, I didn't sign it. Quiet. I must think about this. After what seemed like an eternity, the Lord of Summoned Snakes asked, if you did not sign the contract, how are you able to summon me and my brethren? He moved his great eye closer to look for signs of deceit, releasing some pressure on the small genin to make speaking easier. My bloodline. He coughed, trying to compensate for the lack of air in his lungs just a few moments before. It felt like the broken arm was starting to heal. After he began to breathe normally again, he added, it lets me summon any creature. Manda gazed up at the vast, blue sky. The large patches of white had always appealed to him. They soothed him. After a few moments, he completely took Naruto's tail off of him and gave the genin his best look. You fought hard despite your lack of strength against my own. You are determined. Furthermore, you have an ability that will serve me well in the future. I will allow your misery to be sacrifice enough. Naruto stood up slowly as he felt his arms slowly come back together. People who had to wait a long time to get better always made him feel bad. After a brief period of silence, Manda said, "You are being allowed to summon me and my kin without sacrifice. This is the first time that this has ever happened. You do not seem to be aware of how much of a benefit this is to you. You broke my arm and basically tortured me. Forgive me if I don't seem too happy." Bah, hatchlings are never appreciative. Never. The less of your usefulness you will learn to respect me. You are one of many minions. When the time comes I will find a proper way for you to make up for your lack of respect. For now, however, you are dismissed. 2 of the injured are awaiting your return. A few of my kind are detaining them. When I leave they will be released. Be prepared for one of my retainers to contact you with your further payment or any assignments. When you return to your lair, make sure to summon one into the room so I will be aware what size will be most appropriate. Be assured that the lair is well kept. Diplomats will not be happy if you slack off. Now keep alive. I'd hate to lose someone so useful. And a huge cloud of smoke blocked the path. Naruto grinned and said, "Maybe snakes are more trouble than they're worth?" As he was on the verge of passing out. As his team charged in, he didn't get very far with his thoughts. Kakashi was barely able to move on his own. He fell onto the adjacent Tazuna as soon as he realized Naruto was okay. "Naruto, are you okay?" "Sorry, but snakes constrained us." "Yeah, I'm fine, Kakashi. Sensei, it was just a misunderstanding." "Sorry, Naruto, we tried to come help, we really did. We rushed once we heard the explosions." Looking at his sensei, he said, "Sakura-chan, I'm fine. I'm just tired. So if Tazuna has him, who has me?" Naruto collapsed with those last words. In the vast, whirling depths of Manda's lair, he thought about his latest acquisition. He turned to face the large bronze 3-headed snake on his right and asked, "Habiichi, Ni-san, what are your thoughts on this?" The first head said, "I think we should keep him. We can use him to our advantage on the other summons." The second head said, "To be honest, I don't really care, but if he becomes useless, I would like to eat him." "Shut up, you two. Lord Manda already knows this, Ichi, and Ni you always want to eat. My lord, I think that we should use him to gain more holding with the Slug clan. The Toad clan has been gathering its power for quite a while. Unfortunately, their minion Jiraiya is much more powerful and helpful than we had hoped. Perhaps we should request that Orochimaru assists in training your new minion?" The other 2 heads were quick to give their approval of the idea. No, Orochimaru doesn't need to know about this new minion. He is just as likely to kill him as train him. His pursuit of knowledge is admirable, however he seeks it too eagerly. He breaks all of his subjects unnecessarily. He will not be informed about this. The newest minion is too valuable to waste. Where is Kagehebameru? He was killed by Orochimaru during an experiment, was the first head's response. Manda was filled with anger and exclaimed, "Bah, has he paid for this foolishness?" The second head replied, "He paid with 50 sacrifices. He said that 5 times the usual should more than make up for his transgression, seeing as how Kagehebameru was important to you. I will give him this. He certainly follows protocol well. However, I tire of his foolish waste more quickly each day. Take me to the sacrifices. Hopefully my new minion is more trustworthy than this fool." Sasuke looked at his teammates, who were huddled in the corner next to their potential sensei. "Come on, Sakura. Let's see what's under his mask. What's the worst that could happen?" he said. Their nonsensical behavior provided him with a break from his own racing thoughts. Sasuke realized she was just making excuses. It's his personal privacy. Besides, what if he wakes up and gets mad at us? She said. She was on the verge of losing it. He's too weak from the Sharingan. Besides, even if he gets mad, what would he do? He'd get over it before the week is up. You remember what he said, right? Clearly resisting temptation, Sakura said, "No, it's probably not worth it." "What about you, Teme? You wanna see?" Naruto asked Sasuke after appearing to be devastated. Sasuke thought about the suggestion as he peered out the window at the forest that surrounded the house. It might be him, in disguise. Either that, or Kakashi has gotten his hands on a Sharingan eye somehow. It shouldn't be too difficult. By now, a mere henge would have vanished. Since then, there have been plenty of spares lying around. Looking at Naruto, who seemed to interpret Sasuke's silence as a rejection, and reaching for Kakashi's face. "Wait, Naruto." Naruto's attention was immediately drawn to the absence of insult. "I want to be the one to do it." A newcomer named Tazuna asked, "What are you kids up to?" As Sasuke stood up and approached the sleeping Kakashi, Naruto excitedly responded, "We're gonna see Kakashi Sensei's face." Oh. Tazuna found it hard to understand why they wanted to be cunning about it. It seemed more logical to him to inquire. However, he kept quiet because he owed them his life. After arriving at Kakashi, Sasuke pulled a kunai from his pouch and said, "Now let's see." Naruto almost yelled, "Whoa whoa whoa, just move it. You don't need to cut it off," as Sasuke knelt down, facing his sensei. Tazuna began to approach Sasuke and said, "Hey there kid, none of that." The others appeared to relax as he slowly reached for the mask. "Calm down. It's just in case he thinks I'm an enemy. He's a trained shinobi, he may attack despite his frailty. It's just for safety. I'll get my retribution if it's that man. If not, he has a lot of explaining to do." With surgical precision, Sasuke's fingers slowly made their way beneath the mask. Everyone in attendance eagerly anticipated the big reveal. As they watched Sasuke finally start to take off the obstructing cloth, images of what was underneath the mask flashed before their eyes. Something's wrong. Kakashi sprang to his feet, and everyone except Tazuna leapt from where he was. The other two genin glared at Naruto as he hurried to his own defense. "Yeah? Sasuke was trying to see under your mask and I was trying to stop him and—" "Quiet, Naruto. This is more important than your rivalry. Zabuza is alive." That statement was a bomb of surprise that rang through the room. Why would you think that, sensei? Sakura's voice was shaking. "We saw the hunter. Nin put 2 senbon through his throat. You said so yourself that he was dead." Kakashi sighed as his body began to feel tired. "As you should know, hunter. Nin destroy the body to prevent enemies from reverse engineering techniques, medicine, and names of people's love interests. Usually it is done on the spot to prevent unnecessary risk. A dead body is a surprisingly important commodity in our line of work." Kakashi hesitated for a second, feeling a tiny jolt of pain. After that he kept going, "By itself, this doesn't mean anything. 4 enemy ninja were on site with the body. Not to mention that one of them is well known as being highly perceptive. However, then when you think about how Zabuza was finished off." Sasuke's eyes widened as he understood his sensei's point about acupuncture. However, this revelation did not impress Naruto. "So what's that?" he asked. Sakura responded by saying, "Well, basically it's a medical thing. If you put a needle through someone's body at certain spots, it's supposed to make them have a lot of pain or feel less pain." "I don't see why." "Oh no." The other 3 people in the room appeared to be agitated about an unidentified secret, while Naruto and Tazuna observed. Even Tazuna eventually understood, though, asking, "Wait, say. Sense, is that even possible? Putting someone in a near-death state? Implausible. Especially at long range. However, ninja aren't the kind to follow what's plausible and what's not." Finally realizing, Naruto interrupted, saying, "But you said that he was dead." Kakashi was furious. "Naruto, we just went over that. I may be wrong though, he could actually be dead. However, we have evidence that suggests that the two were working together. Granted, it's highly unlikely. Here's a free ninja tip though. Don't discount anything. We need to prepare just in case. Luckily we have plenty of time." The first person to respond to this was Sakura. "What do you mean we have time? He was badly injured by my jutsu. Not to mention that snake Naruto summoned. Plus being put in a near-death state isn't something you can just walk off. Even the most stubborn of ninja wouldn't be able to recover from that for a week and a half. Knowing what I know of him, it'll probably be a week. About as long as my chakra exhaustion will last. Convenient really. But for now we're going to go out and train." At this, Naruto instantly became excited and exclaimed, "Awesome, I can't wait." A pair of crutches that Tazuna's family had managed to get him, Kakashi stood slowly and said, "I may not be able to move much, but I can at least teach you this." He laughed at his student's one-track mind and said, "Well, I wouldn't get too excited, follow me." "What's a little training going to do? Even you were struggling with him, how are we supposed to do anything?" Sakura interrupted him as he was about to head for the door, saying, "The only reason we won last time was because he wasn't expecting that snake or whatever it was." Kakashi stopped and replied, "Usually I'd agree. Usually I'd call off this mission. However, Zabuza Momochi isn't the kind to allow a loss to go unpunished. No matter what we do, he won't stop until we're all dead. So we might as well protect Tazuna while we can." Secondly, the fact that we did win is an important fact. If 3 fresh genin can take on Zabuza and walk away with only a little bit of help from their teacher, imagine what we can do if we all company coordinate our efforts on him. Since there were no more bursts of disbelief, his students appeared to agree. As he guided them farther into the forest, Kakashi grinned. They will absolutely despise me for this. Naruto rubbed his head while leaning against the counter. Kakashi eventually concluded that he could no longer watch Naruto hurt himself repeatedly after he had fallen roughly 70 times and developed what he was certain would be a scar. He then led them back to Tazuna's house. As Sakura described the fundamental procedure and how she had nearly always reached the top of a tree, Tazuna listened with great interest. So you actually climbed a tree without your arms? What can't ninja do? She asked. Naruto groaned as his head thudded. This sucks. He smiled as he looked at the others and saw that Sasuke was glaring at him. It's actually a very nifty and useful trick, Naruto. In fact, I'm surprised you did as well as you did. Most people don't pick up on it as quickly as you 3 did. Kakashi turned back to Naruto and sighed, saying, I think he's mad at me. Probably for the same reason you are. Sorry, it's not very flashy, but it's necessary. Unbeknownst to the other people in the room, Sasuke's sour attitude was caused by his contradictory thoughts rather than his training. It would be inappropriate to engage him at this time. Zabuza is our only real defense when he's out there. Even if he isn't that man, a dispute with him over my clan's property might make him think it would be simpler to remove me from the situation. This is not a good moment. This is how long I've waited. I have more time to wait. Sakura said, that was fun and all, but it's really hard to keep up for too long. I'm going to go to bed. She yawned loudly and blushed as a result. And Sasuke left a few moments later, silently following suit. Naruto felt much more comfortable asking Kakashi what was on his mind after his rival left the room. Hey Kakashi. Sensei, can I talk to you for a minute? He asked. Sure, Naruto. What's on your mind? Kakashi asked his pupil, struggling to keep his eyes open. Tomorrow when you're teaching us how to walk on water, is it a lot harder to do than tree climbing? Kakashi gave Naruto a brief glance that gave the impression that the younger ninja was being assessed. It was almost as though Kakashi was dissecting him. There was no question in the statement. Would you like to step outside for a moment, Naruto? Yeah, sure. Standing and pursuing his sensei Naruto, who was temporarily disabled, envisioned a variety of penalties. He might be expelled from the program. For a moment, he thought about his sensei using the Sharingan to ensnare him in a world of never-ending suffering, but he quickly dismissed the idea because it was impossible. Just as the house was about to vanish from view, they finally stopped. Naruto was taken aback by the cool manner in which the question was posed. So, you actually want to know how to do that? Nevertheless, he could not help but notice a faint undertone of optimism in Kakashi's voice when he said, the other 2 don't seem interested in the idea at all. In fact, I don't even know if they think it can be done. But we saw you do it, was the final line that particularly perplexed Naruto. Why don't you want to teach us walking, he thought suddenly. As he looked at his student, Kakashi sighed and said, I'm going to correct you while answering those questions. I'm more than happy to teach walking. It's a ton more interesting to teach, and given where it is much more useful. Second, I am going to teach it. He continued in a whisper, looking towards the house, but only to you. Not the other 2 yet. Seeing that Naruto was about to inquire, Kakashi cut him off, saying, to answer your question, it's because you asked about it. You sought out knowledge without waiting for it to be dropped into your lap. But why would it matter if I asked or not? Aren't you supposed to teach us how to become amazing ninja? Kakashi chuckled lightly until it began to hurt. Yes, I am. That's why I'm doing it like this, Naruto. A ninja isn't just a bunch of flashy techniques like they seem to be teaching in the academy these days. There is a lot of mental work involved as well. You need to be able to do work for yourself. Furthermore, you need to be able to realize your shortcomings realistically and work towards overcoming them. At this stage of your career, asking for help is one of the most important ways to do this. I'll admit that it doesn't always work. Some people just won't share. But it's a good way to get ahead in this world. Naruto began to lash out but was interrupted by Kakashi once more. Calm down, Naruto. There is no shame in not being a naturally gifted genius. Most people aren't. Unlike Sasuke, you don't have all the advantages of being someone from a clan. However, you have something that he doesn't. You're willing to work towards your goals a lot harder than he is. You understand that things don't come naturally to you. Sasuke, on the other hand, expects it and therefore doesn't work as hard. Sakura is much the same, really. They've coasted by unnatural talent so much that they've become complacent and don't see their shortcomings. As a result of that, they don't cover up their shortcomings, and that stumps them in terms of growth. But they're so talented, how could that be such a bad thing? Naruto said as he observed Kakashi gazing up at the sky for a short while. At last Kakashi began to speak again. I was hoping that the battle against Zabuza would have had a few more benefits with you three in this regards. Although it appears that only you took the hint. What do you mean, sensei? Naruto, there are people in this world who are much stronger than you three. There are people much stronger than me. Hell, there are even people stronger than the Hokage, believe it or not. Their reason for teams isn't just a sheer number advantage though. It's for learning as well. People are placed on teams to learn from each other as much as their sensei. That's part of why you were placed with the top 2 genin in the class. Since you were dead last, it was figured that you'd learn a lot just from being with them. The theory was that when the genin figured out how much they could learn from each other, they'd continue to seek out more knowledge with other teams, thereby creating a bond between all the teams in a village and bringing them all closer together. For example, there is a man back at the village who has helped me a great deal with taijutsu. I'm talented at it, but I realized that he is much better at it than I am. However, when I asked him to assist me in specific ways in order to cover up my shortcomings, I became a lot better thanks to Guy. Breathing deeply as a wave of discomfort continued to hit him until it stopped. This was a roundabout way of saying that you should never be ashamed to ask for help. At last subsides. Which in and of itself was a roundabout way of saying I'd teach you walking. However, I will not teach the others. What, why? Naruto exclaimed in shock. Was Kakashi simply going to contradict all of that talk about helping people with their problems by refusing to assist them? Simple. They didn't ask. That may seem juvenile, but in this world you can't just expect people to give you what you want like they do. That is an easy and 100% guaranteed way to get yourself killed. I'm trying to break them out of the habit. The very instant they ask, I will give them all the help I can. Until they ask, my hands are tied. Trust me, you will all thank me for this later. Okay, I guess I understand. Good. Well then, now that we're done with that, I'm going to bed. Oh, and Naruto? Yes, Kakashi. Sensei, if I find out that you told them about this, I'll not only refuse to teach them and you, but I'll ask the Hokage to remove you from the ninja program for voyeurism. What's that? Are you serious? It's where you spy on female team mates and clients while they bathe. But I haven't done that. After letting out a very loud laugh, Kakashi remarked, with your track record it wouldn't be hard to convince him. After a moment of silence, Kakashi said, but you shouldn't do that because that's wrong. But seriously, don't tell them. It's for their own good, and I'll buy you all the ramen you can eat when we get back to Konoha. Naruto gave him a look that screamed of promised misery before he laughed again and said, I'm just kidding, Naruto. Honestly, the worst that would probably get you is a slap on the wrist. I know a guy who gets away with it all the time. When Kakashi saw Naruto grinning at him, he instantly regretted his choice. Aren't I going to be broke at the end of this? The following day, Kakashi stood watching his students at about noon. At about 3/4 up the tree, Sasuke was still struggling despite having made the most progress. The last 3 times, Sakura had just walked up and down the tree, leaving a lasting impression on Kakashi. I haven't seen chakra control that advanced in a genin in a long time. If only she would inquire about walking. Kakashi finally made the decision to set off his little trap. All right, team, come together. After his team was gathered, he turned to face Naruto and exaggeratedly sighed, saying, Naruto, you're doing terrible. You haven't even reached halfway up the tree yet. Sakura, you're doing fantastically. I'm quite pleased with your progress. Sasuke, you're doing very well too. However, I noticed that you keep pumping too much chakra into the technique. Just try to work on that. He could definitely do something. I think some training away from distractions would do you some good. But, no buts, Naruto. Now you two, he said, indicating the other 2 genin, will be staying here with a shadow clone just in case something happens. Try not to be just too much of a handful. Sakura questioned, what'll you be teaching him? Just some basics. Well, why not just teach him here? Kakashi had to conceal a little smirk when he said, because I feel that 2 people doing so well may discourage him. Stroke a genius ego and they're putty in your hands. Sakura and Sasuke both appeared to be appeased by this, which was true to his feelings. But that was followed right away by another issue. I want to progress onto new things. Tree climbing won't help me defeat Zabuza. Sasuke made the point. Damn it, Kakashi muses. I think there's too much ego, stroking. You'd be wasting your time with him. I'd be more productive to train. Oh, is that so, Sasuke-kun? Kakashi's excitement was quickly dashed by this line of thought. So may I be so bold as to ask for some clarification? He asked, without waiting for a response. So you're not only saying that you know better than your Junin-sensei, but you are also saying that since Naruto isn't as good as you I should just stop training him? I may not be the infallible Uchiha heir, but give an old man his moment, please. What I am going to be teaching Naruto could save his life. He obviously needs more in-depth instruction, right? He's not as good as you, right? Isn't the point of training to get better, Sasuke-kun? Isn't it worth risking, Sasuke-kun? Sasuke appeared to shrink, if only a little, from the rage that his sensei was barely controlling. Of course not. My mistake then. I must have misheard you earlier. Oh well, an old man like me does that from time to time. Kakashi's anger vanished from the air almost immediately. Remember, don't follow us. If you do, I'll have to punish you. Horribly. He finally made his shadow clone, who was already in poor shape, and he motioned to the others to return to training. The knuckle-headed blonde thought, Kakashi. Sensei, why didn't you let them train? They seem to want to. Isn't that what you wanted? As they left Naruto's training teammates. Well, Sasuke did at least, but he went about it the wrong way. He didn't ask. Since he's a Uchiha, he just figured he would get what he wanted just by demanding it. That is, like I said before, a good way to get yourself killed. Especially since he did it to a superior. In most villages I would have been perfectly in line by killing him. We like to think of ourselves as above such barbarian tactics as killing to intimidate, but the simple fact of the matter is that he lucked out. Sure, what he said was perfectly true. He'd learn this much faster than you. However, you can't just say, make me better, and expect someone to be able to do that. I'm here to offer guidance. Not structure your lives. I need to know what you guys think you need to improve on before I can help. Understand? To be honest, Naruto didn't, but he did nod in the hopes that Kakashi would stop there. He didn't. Besides, this is also a challenge. I'm hoping that the temptation in ninja training will overpower my obviously false command. Well, at least in Sasuke's case I think my plan will work. Sakura not so much. What plan? Look underneath Naruto. If Sasuke wants training as much as I'm hoping he does, he'll form a clone or something to trick my clone, which will overlook the face, and then follow us to find out what I'm teaching you. By tricking my clone, I'm pretty sure he'll think that he'll prove his worth. Although, he may just decide to do the training until he collapses as a way to prove the same point. Even through the mask, Kakashi grinned and said, either way we both know all he has to do. All he has to do is ask to learn to walk with you. An audible gasp came from a nearby bush. With a hint of sarcasm, Kakashi whined, oh no. A student has disobeyed my orders to learn forbidden knowledge. Come on out then. Both shinobi were shocked by what transpired next. Sakura emerged from the bush with a determined expression on their face. Sakura was writhing beneath his stare, and Kakashi looked at her with a fair amount of bewilderment. Really? Sasuke, where are you? Surely he'd have done this too. The notorious copy.nin had to resort to an ancient method of interrogation after attempting to understand what was happening for a few moments. Just asking, why? Sakura fidgeted and turned her head away from her sensei, saying, well, it didn't add up. If it were something basic, you would have just taught it nearby. If you were trying to get us not to mock him, well, you announced that he was getting remedial training. He would have gotten the same treatment from Sasuke-kun and me. So I just needed to know what he had that we didn't. Then, all of her anxiety vanished as a kind of flame took hold of her soul. So what really doesn't add up now is why you're teaching him walking when he can barely climb trees. I'm the most suited for it, Kakashi. Sensei. I don't even need to rely on momentum anymore. She paused for a moment, looking at Naruto with a critical eye as if she was expecting an outburst. So either he's hiding an incredible amount of skill or your reason for teaching him is a little more questionable. I guess those academy tests are more accurate than I remember, Kakashi said, stumped for the first time in a long time. Attempting to act as if he had orchestrated the whole thing, he went on to say, Sakura, despite how much sense what you've said makes, you have disobeyed a superior's orders. Anything you would like to say before your punishment? Today, Kakashi was taken aback by his female student for the second time. I understand, Kakashi. Sensei. I will do whatever is necessary as punishment. But first I want you to teach me walking. I can handle it, I'm sure of it. I'll do whatever it takes, please. Teach me how to walk. Damn, I didn't see this coming. Kakashi debated for a few more seconds before answering. Why? Perhaps I should have read more of her file. I can already climb trees, I've obviously mastered it. I figure that walking will help me train better. Plus if Zabuza attacks, it's more likely he'll attack near water. I don't want to be caught off guard. Sakura continued, seemingly surprised that he was even thinking about it. Kakashi smiled proudly without even trying to hide it. Well, alright, I suppose. However, I still need to punish you for your insubordination. Maybe a pink rope made from natural hair would suffice. Have any idea on how I could get one? The suggestion caused Sakura to visibly pale. I'm just kidding. I think I'll punish you and teach you at the same time. In exchange for training you are not allowed to tell Sasuke anything about our. For the third time, the Pinkette's response startled her sensei by asking, why would I tell him? Kakashi said feebly, because you love him? Well, that's why I shouldn't tell him, right? He still struggles with walking. He's not just ready yet. He will be soon, I'm sure, but for now he's not right. Plus, if he knew he'd just get mad at me and you wouldn't help him anyway, right? So why ruin it for myself? The smooth Kakashi grimaced at his own voice. Well, alright, I suppose. I just sort of thought you'd need more convincing. Incredibly smooth. Well, when will we begin? Finally deciding it was a good moment to speak, Naruto asked. Actually, right now. After taking a few steps into the water, he turned to face his students and was disappointed to see that they weren't as impressed as they had been with the tree climbing. One trick pony or something, I guess, he said, coughing a little before continuing. Now this is very similar to tree climbing, really. However, because it is a liquid, a much smaller quantity of chakra is required. On a tree, you can always afford to go too little or too much. With a liquid, not so. You must be extremely accurate. You will fall if you put in too much because it will mess up the water and remove the necessary surface tension. You will simply sink if you put in too little. That one has no particular justification. I've already covered the fundamentals, though. Let's begin the training immediately. Sakura was the first to move forward, and she was shocked that she didn't sink right away when she took her first shaky steps onto the water. Kakashi remarked, very good. You noticed that immediately. I'm impressed. However, you need to work on your chakra more consistently. That's the reason you're stumbling. Put more chakra into the leg on the water when you move the other leg. The water was as solid as any floor Sakura had ever been on when she tried that. Oh okay. But a deep burning was beginning to spread around her center. Incorporate more chakra. You are sinking. As water began to tickle her knees, she told him, I'm trying. She eventually succeeded in forcing more chakra into her feet, as she floated straight back to the top. Act. With that a loud splash was heard as she fell through. Swimming back up to the top she heard Naruto and Kakashi laughing. Shut up, Naruto. Sorry. Naruto attempted to control his emotions but was unable to do so. A few seconds later, Kakashi said, your control is amazing. I was afraid of this. But you have very little reserve. It's almost dangerous. You have enough, in my opinion, for roughly 12 clones before your chakras run out. Sakura blushed at this, and she was about to say that she more than made up for it with control, even though she knew that her chakra reserves were a little lower than others. However, Kakashi interrupted her. All right, have some rest. Go for it when you're ready to try again, but I want you to do something for me. Create as many clones as you can before bed each night until you feel as though you do now. Your chakra reserves will increase as a result. Come find me and I'll give you instructions once you're able to make 50, which I assume won't happen for a while. Kakashi. Sensei, how many clones can you make? As he watched Sakura swim toward the shore and turn pale at the remark, Naruto posed the question. Well, I can make regular clones around. Although I've never had to make a lot, I'm confident it would be close to or more than 600. Are you serious? Sakura wrung water from her hair and asked. Yes, I am, in fact. But I'm aware that I can produce a good number of bunshin. It's your turn, Naruto, in any case. Even Kakashi seemed taken aback by this realization as Naruto took a few steps out into the water. Naruto approached the water slowly while attempting to focus on pouring chakra into his feet. He stepped onto the water with little hesitation. Whoa, Naruto. That is truly amazing. It took me, he started to say but was interrupted by his student's feet slipping this way and that. No, Naruto. Downwards and constant. Put an end to wind milling. Naruto immediately fell into the water after disregarding his sensei's advice. Kakashi chose to offer additional guidance after Naruto succeeded in reaching the surface and began swimming toward the shore to try again, saying, remember Naruto, you have to keep pushing the chakra straight down. What caused me to begin slipping everywhere? Have you ever slipped on ice or a damp floor? It's similar to that. Just keep in mind that you are being propelled forward by your chakra. You'll slip and fall if you start moving it in any direction. Sakura silently observed everything, thinking, like ice, maybe, Sakura was the last to go to sleep. She lay on the floor for 2 hours, her mind racing with curiosity. With her objective in mind, fighting off sleep was easy, and she knew it was time to act when she heard Naruto snoring and Kakashi breathing lightly. I still wish we didn't have to bunk in the same room, though it'd make getting out of here a lot easier, she thought mildly irritatedly. She opened the door slowly, trying not to make too much noise, and looked around for Sasuke on the front porch. The irony was not lost on her when she said, "All right, Sasuke-kun isn't here right now." But, where is he? Her momentary relief was poisoned when she realized that this only gave her another layer of problems to deal with. If he saw here, things could go bad quickly. The only time I don't want Sasuke-kun seeing me. Lovely. My pink dress isn't helping. I may need to look into getting new clothes when we get back. I stick out like a sore thumb at night. Not as bad as Naruto, though, I don't think. She continued to sneak through the yard, listening intently for even the slightest hint of a follower or observer. By the time Sasuke returned, she had fortunately moved far into the woods. She watched him for a moment, looking for any indication that he knew she was here, and absent. Mindedly noted that he didn't seem very concerned. Odd, she thought, sure that even her beloved Sasuke-kun would be a little concerned with those two crazy people running around. But she had plenty to keep her mind busy at the moment, and she knew she didn't have time for such distractions. For several hours, Sakura wandered through the dark woods, thinking she was going in the wrong direction, and then she turned around when she saw the house. Sasuke was still on watch, which gave her the impression that she had plenty of time left, but then she thought, well, maybe not plenty. She cursed herself and had to cut her time even shorter by sneaking back towards the house to create a clone. Hey, I have a sleeper agent in my own camp. That was the only thought she gave the thing as she sneaked back into the woods, trying to remember how to get there. She searched for an additional hour before finding what she was looking for, the lake. With a sigh of relief, she dipped her foot into the water but quickly pulled it back, saying, "Damn it, that's freezing." However, after a few moments, she realized that this would likely help her, so she looked around and took off her dress, leaving only her shorts and undershirt. "Embarrassing, yes, but beats hypothermia," she said. "I don't know why he'd be relieved. He wouldn't know I was coming out here," she said, reflecting on the relief Kakashi had shown her when he realized she still had chakra left. She took a slow step out onto the water. She pushed these thoughts away and looked down at the water. "All right," she said out loud, "keep it constant. Now shift it to the left slightly," and she dove quickly into the cold water, but when she surfaced, her smile was wider than it had been in a long time because, for a brief moment before she fell, she had all the proof she needed that what she had in mind could work. Sakura had just returned from her self-imposed training period by the time the sun was rising, and she put on a fresh outfit to avoid raising suspicions about her wetness before lying down to try to get a few minutes of sleep, anything to get through the day, which she knew would be a real pain. Fortunately, no one seemed to know what she had done, or at least, based on how they all treated her, they didn't mention it. Sakura grinned as she almost dozed off during breakfast, thinking that perhaps she could ask Naruto for some of his energy, since he seemed to have plenty of it. She laughed out loud at the thought just before they arrived at the lake. People couldn't do that, could they? Kakashi. Sensei. Hello. She's tired. I knew she wasn't really ninja material, but I was starting to hope. Kakashi mentally chastised himself for thinking such things before responding. Yes, Sakura? She gave a loud yawn and went on. Is it possible to borrow chakra from someone? I'm a little worn out. Sakura, let me show you my chakra. No, you won't. Kakashi said solemnly. Yes, it is possible to respond to your question. But that is not what we will do. Chakra energy boosts can cause dependency, anxiety, and in this case, possibly even death. Furthermore, we cannot afford to replenish your supplies each time you run out. I don't want you to refill my reserves, just enough to yawn once more, get me awake so that my own reserves will start refilling. Let's say I can pull it off just this once, but just a little, okay? Avoid growing accustomed to this." Kakashi put his hand on Sakura and pushed some of his own chakra into her in response, saying, "I don't want anything bad to happen." Even though it was only a tiny amount, not even enough for a basic clone, it seemed to start her chakra coils, and Sakura was shocked by how energized she felt after this. However, she noticed that his chakra was different, saying, "It feels like lightning." This started a routine for Sakura. She'd practice regular water walking during the day, sneak out at night to practice her new technique, then bum a small bit of chakra from someone in the morning to get me through the day. On the 5th day she thought to herself, this is odd. Kakashi said that he doesn't approve, but surely he's noticed. Plus, why does everyone's chakra feel different? She had noticed that none of their chakras were really the same. She knew from the academy that chakra was sort of like a finger print, just harder to read, but from how they talked about it things were just slightly different. Thicker or lighter. However, after having chakra pumped into her several times, she noticed that each of them had a totally different chakra signature. Kakashi's was intense and fast-moving like lightning. Sasuke's, on the one occasion she had managed to convince him to loan her some, was warm and powerful but felt insubstantial despite the burning feeling it left in her veins. Then there was Naruto. On the first occasion, his chakra was energizing, free, flowing, and felt very pleasant. On the second occasion, however, she was afraid. During the night, he confessed that he had been practicing water walking in the ocean and playing around with tree climbing, which he found easier now that he was trying water walking. He claimed that he felt like he was running low himself, but she persisted until he consented. He placed his hand on her shoulder and pushed a tiny bit of chakra into her, just like the first time he had done it, until she told him to stop, but this time was different. He couldn't have given her even a fraction of the chakra needed for even walking on a tree, but once the pain left her, she felt energized beyond anything she had ever experienced. She had been able to train all day long with just that small amount of chakra, and the more she used it, the less painful it got until she was certain she had worked it out of her system completely. She sensed something was wrong the moment he began pushing chakra into her. His chakra was dark, oppressive, malevolent, and, worst of all, it burned. She thought absently, it felt great to be so strong, but I'm glad it's gone. I don't want to do this chakra transfer stuff anymore. Even though she was certain that Naruto had given her only a small portion of his chakra, he was still unable to defeat Sasuke in a spar. I'll ask Kakashi about it when we get back to Konoha. After a few days, the three of them were standing on the water again, with Kakashi and Naruto sparring, though it was clear that Kakashi wasn't fully recovered. Naruto had made significant progress in the days since he began, and he stood on the water with the same firmness as if he were standing on stone. Naruto kicked his arm with a painful thud, causing Kakashi to grunt. All right, that's enough. I'm still healing, Kakashi grumbled while tending to his arm. But at least you're getting better. When you landed, you had just begun to sink. Before turning to face Sakura, Kakashi stretched his neck a little and said, well, since I'm too sore to practice again, it's up to you too. Okay. Rules identical to those of a typical sparring match. The only way to lose is to touch the ground or submerge your head, even if it's just the chine. Apart from that, anything goes. Position yourself. On my mark. What if I hurt Sakura too much and she decides never to date me? I don't want to fight her. Sakura observes as Naruto looks at her suspiciously, almost fearfully. Naruto. This jolted him out of his anxious reverie. Please don't hold anything back. This is for us both. I won't forgive you if you keep it to yourself. After giving her a startled look, Naruto grinned and said, all right, Sakura-chan, whatever you say. Prepare yourself. Oh man, why did I do that? He's got so much more chakra, plus, he's a brawler. This kind of thing is right up his alley. Maybe I should just. Sakura fretted now. We can't afford to give up now, so we're not going to give up like that. Let's show him our new technique, Cha. Indeed. We'll let him know who's in charge. Sakura grinned and said, I'm more than ready. While focusing chakra at her feet. Alright? Anything else to say? Any more gloating? Good. On my mark, get set. Go. Kakashi said, nodding as the trash talk came to an end.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.